Life, no matter how tiring, must be faced. Days, no matter how difficult, must pass. Remember that everyone in this world has their own struggles. No one is truly idle or perfect as we imagine. Therefore, just keep your heart steady and strive. For a lifetime, though it's said to be long, it's not excessively long. And though it's called short, it's not so short that there's no time to do anything. To live one day fully is already a blessing. So cherish every moment of the present, for once time slips away, it will never return. As human beings, we don't necessarily have to prove we are right. The earth still rotates, the universe still operates, and everyone must move with that current of impermanence. Therefore, no matter how capable you are, you need to maintain proper humility and do your duty well. If you are gold, you will naturally shine. Even when worries surround you, don't forget to smile. Even when life is rushed, know how to walk with grace. No matter how many hardships you face, don't forget to be persistent and patient. And no matter how tired you are, you must learn to love yourself. A simple life is the happiest life. Those who are content are often happy. Those who are generous and forgiving have hearts as light as clouds. Don't overthink anything, for a mind that carries too much will sooner or later grow weary. Someone once compared their mind to a surface of water. The more you stir it, the murkier it gets. But if you just let it settle, it will become clear. Overthinking is not profundity, but a sign that your mind lacks peace. The Buddha taught that we should not cling to the past mind, nor chase the future mind, but only dwell in the present. Yet, we often do the opposite. We live in the past that has gone, worry about the future that has not arrived, and lose the present moment in fear. What is left of this life then? Haven't there been times when you stayed awake all night over a small matter, but afterwards, everything passed smoothly? How many times have you worried for months, only to realize, once you got through it, how much time you had wasted? So, what is the point of overthinking? Does it solve problems? Or does it just exhaust us? Fear itself is not as terrifying as holding on to it in our hearts. The more we dedicate our thoughts to worry, the larger the worry becomes. And then we become the ones who build a wall, separating ourselves from true happiness. What is the point of overthinking as a human being? Too much thinking leads to headaches. Prolonged thinking leads to fatigue. Thoughts remain messy, and worries are vague. That is tying more ropes around your heart. Life is only once. Once it ends, it cannot be revisited. Once it is lost, it cannot be found again. Time is more precious than gold and silver. Every moment is invaluable. So why do we use it to nurture worries? Stop overthinking. Cherish what is present before your eyes. Live one day, know one day, pass one day, fully understand one day. Because no one knows what unexpected event will happen a minute from now. No one can be sure that the person next to them today will always be there. Less thinking in the mind, a contented heart, is the first step to peace and happiness. The Buddha once taught that people suffer not because they have little, but because they desire too much. When the mind arises, all phenomena arise. When the mind ceases, defilements also cease. If, in this very moment, we decide to live simply and stop struggling with too many thoughts, that is when peace begins to enter our lives. And that is also the message this video wants to send you. Learn to live with less thinking, to live with contentment, so that every moment is a gift of life. My dear friend, sometimes I think that human life is like a river flowing through the many different lands. There are stretches that are still and clear, others that murmur and rush, and then there are turbid sections full of sediment and big waves. But the strange thing is that no matter how many hardships the river has to flow through, it has never complained, never resisted its own current. It just keeps going, because the nature of water is to flow, and the nature of life is to change, and the nature of the mind is sensation, thought, emotion, the invisible waves that make us so incredibly tired. In Buddhist teachings, there is a very important truth. All suffering begins from the mind. The body can endure cold, heat, and hunger, but once the mind is in chaos, people no longer truly live in the present moment. They exist rather than truly live, like a responsive Buddhist tree. I once heard a Zen master teach that people often don't die from what happens, but from what they think will happen. What hasn't arrived makes us lose sleep. What hasn't taken shape makes us tremble. What hasn't occurred makes us lose the moment we have. Thinking is an inherent human ability, but overthinking is a form of silent suffering. And have you noticed? Silent pains are often more dangerous than sudden outbursts of pain. For a cold, we look for medicine. For a stomachache, we look for a doctor. But when we overthink, when anxiety is ceaseless, who will diagnose us that our mind is injured? No one. We still go to work, still laugh and talk, still live normally. But deep inside is an invisible backpack, always heavy on our backs. We carry it from home to work, from the dinner table to our bed, from conversations to being alone in a dark room. That is the form of suffering called overthinking. I want to delve deeper into human psychology with you. Why do people tend to overthink? Why does more thinking lead to more fear? More thinking leads to more sleeplessness, irritability, sadness, and self-pity. Because when people live in worry, the brain constantly tries to predict the future in hopes of finding solutions. But the paradox is, the more you worry, the less you find a way forward. The human brain naturally functions best in a calm state. The more chaotic it is, the less clear-headed it becomes. An overthinker lives like someone lost in a maze. The more they run, the more tired they get. The more they search for a way out, the more dead ends they find. And eventually, they lie down, breathing heavily in despair. The Buddha taught that no enemy is as dangerous as one's own mind, because external circumstances can intimidate us, but only our minds can imprison us in dark rooms named fear, doubt, worry, and hurt. That mind is a prison if we don't understand it, but that mind can also be a refuge if we know how to care for it and let go. Overthinking is a form of suffering that is very difficult to recognize, because those who experience it often believe they are just being careful, thoughtful, or looking ahead to avoid mistakes. But overthinking doesn't make the future better. It only makes the present gloomy. Imagine you are walking on a road at night. Fear might make you turn back or stand still. afraid to move. But if you calmly take one step at a time, you will see that there are still lights ahead, the sound of cars, the warmth of life. But many people don't realize that. They stop or run too fast, exhausting themselves. Overthinking is similar. It makes us think we are living for the future, but in reality, we are losing the present. The Fat Fap Lin Ung channel wants to tell you a small story that, whenever I recall it, I feel like I see myself in it. It's the story of Min, a friend I met during a meditation retreat. Min is 28 years old, an office worker at a fairly stable company, with a decent income. His parents are healthy, and his friends cherish him. But Min always feels scared. Min often told me, "What if the company fires me tomorrow? What if I can't afford a house later? What if something unexpected happens and I lose everything?" You see, the word "if" is a sharp knife. When we use it to find opportunities, it is wisdom. But when we use it to scare ourselves, it becomes a blade cutting into our minds. Every night, Min would toss and turn, thinking until 1 or 2 in the morning, before finally dozing off. During the day, he was tired from lack of sleep, easily irritated by what colleagues said. At home, his mother's questions annoyed him, and he just wanted to be alone in the dark. Then one day, Min requested a few days' leave. He said he felt like he was about to break down, so he sought out a small Zen monastery on the outskirts of the city. There he met a Zen master, a thin man with kind but deep eyes, like the ocean. They sat facing each other in the quiet room, and Min recounted his life, his fears, and his accumulated thoughts. The master listened attentively, without interrupting or judging. When Min finished, the master just smiled and said, "You put stones in your own backpack, and then ask why you are tired." The seemingly light words were profound. They seemed to awaken someone deep in sleep. Min said that when he heard those words, he suddenly paused. He had been tiring himself for years. No one had put stones in his backpack. He had done it himself. He only thought, but didn't realize that thoughts also have weight. The master didn't give a long lecture, only guided Min with a simple method. Each time his mind felt stressed, Min had to stop, breathe deeply 3 times, place his hand on his chest, close his eyes, and say to himself, "This present moment is enough." He began to practice. At first, it felt strange, even a bit reluctant, but gradually he realized that his body felt much more comfortable. Whenever he breathed deeply and stopped chasing thoughts, he slept soundly again. Conversations with his mother became warmer, and he no longer feared the future as he had before. A month later, I met Min again. His face was brighter, and his eyes held a peace I had never seen before. He told me, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'm fine today, and I choose to live with this fine today." That story made me reflect a lot. The Buddha taught that all troubles come from clinging to things that don't exist yet or have already passed. The more one worries and overthinks, the further one moves away from the present, and the present is where we truly live. Someone once asked me if one should eliminate all thoughts. I replied, no. Humans need thoughts to navigate life, but thoughts must be accompanied by mindfulness. Thoughts must go with breath and must stop when overloaded. We must know that the brain also needs rest. Letting thoughts rush towards the future is losing the opportunity to admire the flower right in front of us. In psychology, overthinking is called, well, overthinking, a very common disorder in modern society. People overthink due to work pressure, fear of failure, comparison with others, or the desire to be perfect. The more intelligent a person is, the more susceptible they often are. But in Buddhism, overthinking is seen as the mind not dwelling in the present. Such a mind runs like a wild horse. It runs and runs until exhausted, then returns to trample the inner garden of peace within oneself. When we don't understand this, we think that the more we think, the more we can solve everything. But when we are utterly exhausted, we only then realize we've just been digging a deeper hole for ourselves to fall into. The Fat Phap Lin Ung channel realizes that the thinking is not the enemy, but ceaseless worrying is indeed a form of suffering. It comes very gently, very silently, but it can make people lose their appetite, lose sleep, lose relationships, and even lose the meaning of life. Have you ever eaten a meal with your mind still on tomorrow's deadline? Have you ever lain in bed with your heart racing, thinking about potential risks? Have you ever been silent in a crowd, but felt a storm raging inside? If so, you understand, to some extent, the suffering called overthinking. So, what should we do? We must learn to stop, but not by forcing ourselves not to think, but by stopping to look back. Try the practice Min did at the meditation center. When you feel your mind is stressed, sit up straight, breathe deeply. Truly breathe as if you are breathing for the first time. After many years, inhale. Feel the air enter your chest. Exhale. Feel all worries leave with your breath. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your heartbeat and gently tell yourself, this present moment is enough. If you practice every day, you will realize you've removed stones from your backpack without even knowing when. Overthinking doesn't solve problems. My teacher once said that worry is just a psychological reaction, not a real action to change life. Thinking in a way that seeks a path is good, but thinking that just goes in circles is like a bird trapped in a cage. The more it flies, the more its wings hurt. We need to accept that no one can control the future, but we can take care of the present. And a well-cared-for present is a solid foundation for the future to naturally settle down. My dear friend, if today you feel tired from overthinking, remember that you are not alone. Many people are also carrying a heavy backpack like yours, but you have the right to put it down. Life is not all rosy, but it's not all gray either. Your mind is like a lake. The more you stir it, the murkier it gets, and only when you let it settle can the water become clear again. I hope that by the time you hear this, you can try breathing deeply 3 times, just 3 times. And when you finish breathing, tell your heart that this present moment is enough. You don't need to have everything to be peaceful. Just let your mind think less, and life will naturally lighten up. I don't want you to immediately believe my words. I just hope you try, because only experience is the best teacher. The Buddha once taught, "Be a lamp unto yourselves." And sometimes that lamp is a peaceful breath that is a moment of mindfulness. That is the moment we realize we are living, not just existing. If one day you wake up and find your mind a little lighter, sleep a little better at night, your gaze a little kinder, then smile. because you have truly taken a small but important step out of the form of suffering, called overthinking. I believe you can do it, and I am always here, ready to accompany you. Have you ever wondered why this world keeps spinning, but people's hearts still haven't found peace? Every day, countless shimmering city lights pass by. But when night falls, many still find themselves empty. They have tall houses, luxury cars, overflowing bank accounts, but still feel an inner unease. The more we have, the more we fear losing. The tighter we hold, the more we fear dropping. I have met many people living amidst urban splendor, whose eyes are wearier than those of hard-working people in poor rural areas. This makes me understand that life is not based on the numbers people possess, but on the feelings they perceive in their hearts. What creates happiness is not what is outside the body, but what is present in the mind. I remember a saying about the philosophy of impermanence. Everything comes and goes. Everything meets and disperses. Everything is had and then lost. Seeing this change helps people become less stubborn, less agitated, and less prone to chasing after what is not real. We cannot hold on to youth forever, cannot cling to time, cannot lock happiness in a box and open it whenever we are sad. Because, simply put, the nature of life is constant change. No one can resist impermanence. If someone chases desires, viewing money, fame, and glory as the ultimate goal, they are no different from someone chasing their shadow under the afternoon sun. The more they run, the further the shadow. The more they desire, the more chaotic their mind becomes. The more they think they must have more, the more burdens they carry into life. The Buddha once taught a saying that made me reflect for a very long time. Tri tukjia tuingwa dia tungdiat an lak, which means, one who knows contentment, even lying on the ground, still finds peace. That saying was like a lamp shining into my mind whenever comparisons or desires welled up in my heart. There were times I also thought that I had to achieve this or that to truly have value. But then I discovered that the more I chased things, the more I lost the precious peace in my soul. I was afraid of being inferior to others, afraid of being slower, afraid no one would appreciate me, afraid of being left behind. So I plunged myself into work, competing, calculating every little bit. But one day, I realized that my mind was no longer as carefree as before. Smiles became fewer, and moments of sound sleep became rare. I began to understand that sometimes life doesn't require us to defeat anyone, just to defeat ourselves, to overcome greed and comparison within. I have met many successful people in society. Some have stable careers, some are business owners, some are famous figures. But when they sat down and talked about their lives, not a few of them felt lonely. They said they were living like a lost breeze amidst the bustling crowd. They had money, but no peace, fame, but no restful sleep. Every morning, people leave their homes feeling like they have to fight. This made me understand that life doesn't necessarily reward those who have a lot, but sometimes smiles upon those who know contentment. A contented person is not someone without goals, but someone who still lives with dreams, yet does not trade peace for what they want. They understand that greed does not bring lasting happiness, And the most precious thing in life is that after a day of work, you can sleep peacefully with a mind free of worries. In ancient times, when the Buddha was still alive, there was a very poor man who often wandered, doing odd jobs. One day, he came to listen to the Buddha preach about contentment. After listening, he bowed and said, "I am this poor. How can I be called content?" The Buddha just looked at him and asked, "Every day you still have food to eat. You still have your health. Your body can still move around, right?" He replied, "Yes." The Buddha said, "Then you possess things that not a few wealthy people only dream of." Upon hearing this, the man burst into tears. He said that all his life he had only thought he was inferior, never realizing that he also possessed precious things. From then on, he lived peacefully, worked normally, and his mind no longer suffered as much as before. That story makes me feel that happiness is not outside of life, but in how our minds perceive life. I want to tell you a story I witnessed in real life. In the Mekong Delta, there was an old woman named Tu. She had lived for over 70 years, alone in a small wooden house by a gentle canal. The house was old and dilapidated. It leaked in the rainy season and was hot in the dry season. But she had lived there for many years. She didn't have much money, just a few rows of vegetables behind the house, a small kitchen, and a wooden bed with loose nails. Yet, every time I visited, I always saw a smile on her face. She said, "As long as I have rice to eat every day, land to grow vegetables, and the sound of birds every morning when the sun rises, then the Buddha loves me." The first time I heard that, I was silent for a long time. In a developing society where people have to calculate everything to live, she lived as carefree as someone who knew no worries. But I understood that it wasn't that she didn't worry, but because she had learned to accept and be content. One day, a businessman from the city stopped by, having heard about her, and sought her out. He was a very successful man, drove a beautiful car, wore luxurious clothes, and spoke confidently. But after just one conversation with her, he looked out at the canal, and his whole body stiffened. He asked how she could live so happily, while he had everything and still felt empty. She just gently said, "My child, some people eat white rice, but still feel it's not enough. Some people eat rice with vegetables and find it very delicious. It's not the rice that makes people suffer or happy, but how their mind views the bowl of rice." After hearing this, the businessman bowed his head for a long time. I looked at him and suddenly understood. Sometimes happiness doesn't need to be found far away. Just open your heart to see what is present before you. And you might realize that life is still beautiful. I feel that contentment is a spiritual gift. It does not come from material conditions, but from mental fortitude. Contentment doesn't make us abandon everything, but it helps us stop chasing things that are not truly necessary. Some people think that being satisfied with the present means stopping, not moving forward. But in reality, contentment does not prevent us from progressing. It only helps us prevent greed from leading us astray. When we live with contentment, we will know that gain or loss are both lessons, and winning or losing are steps on the journey of growth. No one lives without experiencing ups and downs. No one can keep what they want forever. But those who are content will look at life with compassion and serenity. They understand that everything comes and goes, and when it comes, they receive it. When it goes, they accept it and smile. I think the reason people suffer is mostly because they don't see how much they already have. The psychology of constant comparison makes people always feel lacking. We look at others and think they have what we don't, but we fail to see what we have that they don't. We have family, but dream of money. We have money, but dream of health. We have health, but dream of a loved one, while the loved one dreams of freedom. Thus we go from one desire to another, without rest. A life spent only pursuing, but never stopping to feel. It's like someone on a long journey who never sits down to drink from a spring. I am reminded of the image of someone drinking water from a stream. The stream water is clear and cool. You just need to cup your hands to drink. But if you keep running without stopping, even if the stream is right next to you, you will remain thirsty. Happiness is like that. It is always there in every small moment, in every breath, in every simple smile. But if the mind keeps chasing tomorrow, it will never see today. When you wake up and see the sunrise, that is already a gift. When you can eat a warm meal, that is already a blessing. When you have someone to talk to call by name, to share joys and sorrows with, that is already a form of happiness. Many people live in this world, constantly searching for a feeling, and forget that peace has never left them. In Buddhism, contentment is wisdom. Contentment is not stopping, but a way for the mind not to be controlled by illusions. A person who is not content will always be pulled back by the past, pushed forward by the future, and their mind will always run like a whirlwind. But a contented person lives fully in the present. They can work, learn, and strive, but still maintain an inner sense of ease. They succeed not because they want to be better than others, but because they want to be better than themselves. They know that today they do their best and sleep peacefully. As for tomorrow, let tomorrow answer. That is a form of inner freedom that money cannot buy. If you ask me how to cultivate contentment, I would say, start with the smallest things. Every night before you sleep, you can ask yourself, what was I grateful for today? A meal with family, a kind word from someone, a place to return to, a body free from serious illness. Perhaps that is enough to smile. Try to take 3 deep breaths. Place your hand on your chest and tell yourself that this present moment is enough. You will feel a certain lightness. If your mind is still comparing, remember the Buddha's teaching. One who knows contentment, even lying on the ground, still finds peace. If your mind is still troubled by what you haven't achieved, remember Mrs. Tu's words. As long as you have rice to eat and land to grow vegetables, life is still worth living. I believe that life is not meaningless. Each day is a blank page for us to write simple things. If we are content, nothing is lacking. If we are content, no suffering lasts long. If we are content, even rainy days become warm, because happiness does not demand perfection, but only a heart that knows how to cherish the small things it has. And if you are listening to these words, perhaps you are ready to slow down, breathe deeper, and look at life with a gentler eye. Allow your mind to rest. Allow the past to close. Allow the present to become worth living. Take each step slowly, peacefully. For every contented step is a form of happiness. This life is constantly moving. Everything runs so fast that many of us keep chasing without knowing where we are going, for what reason, or when we can stop. Today's humans may walk with their feet, but their minds race on an endless track. Finding a moment of peace is as difficult as finding a motionless breeze on a summer afternoon. I realized this when I saw so many of my friends living in a state of exhaustion without knowing why. They work hard enough, try hard enough, but deep down, their hearts still churn, as if something is missing. Sometimes, when they lie down at night, their minds still run a marathon. Their heartbeat follows their worries, not their breath. People say life is impermanent. I believe that because nothing stays for too long, not even the deepest sorrows or the most beautiful joys. Yet, if we know how to live in each moment, even impermanence becomes a gift of life. According to Buddhist teachings, impermanence is not meant for us to fear, but for us to awaken to the fact that the breath we are taking is the most precious thing, to awaken to the fact that today's meal, the voices of loved ones, a good night's sleep, are things that people in hospitals wish for every day. Yet we ourselves, who live more fully than they do, often do not feel the value of these things. When we are too absorbed in what has not yet come, we lose what we have in the present. When the mind keeps thinking about the future, this moment becomes meaningless. That is the root of exhaustion. The Buddha taught that the human mind often runs like a monkey, jumps like an ape, sometimes reminiscing about the past, sometimes worrying about the future, and very rarely standing still in the present. That is the reason for human suffering. Suffering does not only come from external events, but largely from the inner turmoil of our minds. Sometimes it's not the world that tires us, but our minds constantly running within that world. There are people eating, but their minds are not present at the meal. They eat, but cannot taste the food. They just swallow as a habit to exist. Some people are walking on the road, but in reality, they are not aware of their steps. Their minds drift into worries or some pressure. There are also people listening to loved ones talk, but they are not really hearing anything because their minds are trapped in anxieties. The body is here, but the mind is elsewhere, so life loses its completeness. In Buddhist teachings, there is a precious concept called mindfulness. Mindfulness means knowing you are receptive, knowing you are eating as you eat, knowing you are walking as you walk, knowing you are breathing as you breathe. It sounds simple, but it is actually a profound practice. Because from childhood, we only learn how to be good, how to be excellent, how to achieve. But we rarely learn how to feel every moment of life. Everything we do is like a race, and we forget that the real goal is not to reach the finish line, but how we walk on that path. If today you can eat a truly complete meal, clearly feel the taste of each grain of rice, the aroma of vegetables, and the warmth of the bowl of soup in your hand, then you have begun to walk on the path of healing yourself. Have you ever experienced eating a meal without being aware of it? An emptiness that prevents us from tasting the food, even though it is still there. In the story of Lan that I want to tell you, I see the reflection of many people. Lan is a 32-year-old elementary school teacher. Every day, she teaches until the afternoon, then does paperwork until evening. Her meals often consist of just a few hurried spoonfuls. Sometimes, she even forgets whether she has eaten or not. Lan's mind is never present in those moments. She eats like someone in flight, thinking about tomorrow's lesson, about feedback on lesson plans, about end-of-month salary, and bonuses. She carries work into her sleep and worry into every meal. One day, while eating alone, Lan suddenly burst into tears. She wasn't crying out of sadness, but because she realized she could no longer taste the food her mother used to cook. She realized she had lived too long without knowing how she was living. That realization was like a small bell ringing in her heart. From that day on, Lan began to practice eating slowly. For each meal, she spent at least 15 minutes just sitting, looking at her bowl of rice, and breathing. She reminded herself that this was not a task or a ritual. This was a gift that life was offering. Lan began to practice by whispering in her mind as she put a spoonful of rice into her mouth. This is rice. This is life. As she chewed, she felt every movement of her teeth, tongue, throat, and breath. She didn't try to think about anything, just focused on staying with those simple sensations. After 2 weeks, Lan said her mind felt half as light. She no longer ate in a hurry, no longer breathed unconsciously, no longer worked in a state of flight. She said that just one deep breath was enough to soothe her mind. She realized she wasn't living slower, just living more authentically. I listened to Lan's story and reflected for a long time. Meditation is not sitting still for 30 minutes. Meditation is the moment you realize you are alive. Meditation is a conscious breath. Meditation is mindfulness in every step. In the Anapanasati Sutta, discourse on the mindfulness of breathing, the Buddha taught, breathing in, I am aware that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I am aware that I am breathing out. The breath is the bridge connecting body and mind. If you can cross that bridge, you return to your own home. Our minds often wander, but our breath is always here. When we cling to our breath, we know we are still present. A lot of suffering arises simply because we forget this. In life, we can practice 3 small things that have great healing power. First, breathe like a gentle breeze. Try inhaling very gently and exhaling very slowly. When you inhale, silently say, I am breathing in. When you exhale, silently say, I am breathing out. No matter where you are, you can return to yourself in a single breath. Second, walk like a meditator. If you have to walk a lot every day, why not practice walking like a spiritual practitioner? Each step is a return to reality. If your steps are mindful, your mind will not drift into worries. Third, listen without judgment. Perhaps we are accustomed to listening to evaluate, to react, to argue and compete. But when we listen completely, just listening without judgment, we will understand that everyone carries some form of suffering. And when we understand, we will no longer want to compete. The day I learned about mindfulness, I was like you, finding it difficult to practice. Life is busy. How can one always be mindful? But I understood that mindfulness is not about trying to be different, but about returning to live fully in this moment. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha stated that suffering is a truth of life, but he also taught that suffering can be transformed if we have the right path. That path is the Noble Eightfold Path, and mindfulness is a part of it. You don't need to go to a temple. You don't need to sit in long meditation. You just need to start by living fully in each breath. When the mind is mindful, troubles will have difficulty taking root, just as a room with open doors letting in light naturally makes the darkness disappear. In the Surangama Sutra, there is a beautiful saying, "When the mind is pure, wisdom shines. When wisdom shines, life is at peace." I believe that when the mind has the peace of mindfulness, even if life still has storms, you will still find a peaceful place to return to. Try watching a falling leaf. You will see that nature is never in a hurry. Listen to the birds singing early in the morning. You will find that sound is never rushed. A tree doesn't worry about when it will bear fruit. A bird doesn't fear if it will have food tomorrow. But humans always worry. Perhaps it's because we forget nature's way of living. I want to tell you that sometimes happiness is not about achieving something new, but about living more deeply with what we already have. A truly mindful minute of eating is meditation. A truly mindful breath is also meditation. A sincere handshake is also meditation. Each time the mind stops and knows it is alive is each time life opens its door to our hearts. Mindfulness does not change our lives in a day, but it helps us live a little more authentically each day. And just by living a little more authentically each day, I believe your mind will gradually become more peaceful, like water becoming clear again when it is no longer stirred. I hope you will try something very simple today. Take a few minutes to eat a meal mindfully. No phone, no worries, no rushing. Feel the breath entering your body and listen to it. Look at the sky for a moment when you're outside. Take one slower step and tell yourself that you are here. That alone is a good start. Life doesn't demand you to be excellent, only that you are fully present. Because when the mind is present with the moment, you will find that nothing is truly too heavy. Only when the mind wanders elsewhere do we feel alone. I believe you deserve peace, and a mind that thinks less is not enough. You also need mindfulness. With mindfulness, fatigue will recede, sorrow will be illuminated, and your breath will become your closest companion in life. My dear friend, have you ever looked up at the sky at dusk and suddenly felt a clear realization that human life is truly fragile? Just yesterday, we were in the prime of youth. But today, we already see a few strands of gray hair in the mirror. Just yesterday, we were playing in the yard. But today, our hearts ache when we see loved ones aging day by day. There are very ordinary moments that suddenly make us realize that this life is like a breath. Inhale, and then exhale. Gone. No one knows if tomorrow they will still be here or have gone far away. The Buddha taught that everything is impermanent. This means that nothing is certain to last forever. Happiness is impermanent. Sadness is impermanent. The people we love are impermanent. And we ourselves are impermanent. Yet, paradoxically, we always live as if we will live forever. We let time pass in vague thoughts, in baseless worries, in long, sleepless nights, contemplating things that may or may not be real. or are just figments of our imagination. I once heard a teacher say that human life is condensed into 3 periods: yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow has not yet arrived. Only today is the reality unfolding. Yet we often live as if there are only 2 things: recalling yesterday and imagining tomorrow. Because we regret yesterday, we lose our peace. Because we worry too much about tomorrow, we miss today. The Buddha once said that this makes people suffer more than anything else. People do not live with what is happening in reality, but live with thoughts about what has passed or what has not yet come. Overthinking, excessive worrying, deep regrets. The human mind is like tying itself to an invisible rope, running tiredly for a lifetime without knowing where it is running. Try asking yourself, have you many times told yourself that when things get better, I will live peacefully? When I earn money, I will start to be happy. When life is easier, I will love myself. But then many years pass, and those whens never arrive. Some people walked out the door this morning and never returned tonight. Some people were laughing happily last night and became a memory this morning. Some missed calls become a lifelong regret. There are times we intended to hug someone and say how much we loved them, but thought maybe later. And then there was no later. Human life is as short as a breath, as fragile as morning mist, as vague as an afternoon shadow. Just by overthinking, we can lose an entire lifetime while thinking we are living. According to Buddhist teachings, the reason our minds suffer is because we do not live in the present. Clinging to the past brings pain. Fearing the future brings worry. Only when we know how to return to the present moment can the mind be at peace. Many years of living, I have realized one thing. People do not suffer because of external deficiencies, but because their minds do not know how to stop, constantly fabricating this and that, and then tying themselves to it. Not a few people have decent homes, enough money in their accounts, and stable health, but still toss and turn, still have headaches, still feel empty inside. They think that if they had something more, life would be happier. But once they have it, they think they need even more to be happy. So the vicious cycle of thinking never stops. When they look back, yesterday is gone. Tomorrow has not yet come, and today has already been missed. The human psyche often likes to think about uncertainties. Sometimes we fear an event will happen, and then imagine a series of worst-case scenarios. We think, what if I fail? What if that person leaves me? What if there are no more opportunities? That what-if mind is like an invisible cage that traps us, making us live as if we are running from something. But do you know, most of the things we fear never happen. Only the thoughts about them wear us down. We don't sleep soundly. We don't eat well. We don't live authentically. Isn't such a mind shortening our own lives? I once met a friend in the hospital. He was only 40 years old, healthy, active, worked tirelessly, always looked to the future, and threw himself into work. But during a general health checkup, the doctor found signs of cancer. He said that the moment he heard the doctor say that, all the thoughts about the future he had pursued for so long suddenly seemed very small. He said something that I will always remember. It turns out I've lived for so long without knowing I was living. The only thing he wished for at that moment was not money or position, but simply to sit and eat a meal with his family. Life is like that. Sometimes, just a diagnosis, an unexpected event, a sudden dream can make us re-evaluate our entire life. So why do we have to wait until we are in pain to cherish the moment? I want to tell you a story called The Last Photo. The character in the story is Hoa, around 40 years old, a construction engineer. He was the type of person often seen in this life, hardworking, ambitious, loved his job so much that he forgot about himself and his family. He worked from morning till night. And even when he came home, he would open his computer to continue working. On holidays, he would still take out design plans to work on. His wife and children always ate meals before him, because he always said, "Let me work a little longer." His elderly mother called her son many times just to hear his voice. But he would often just say a few words and hang up because he was busy. Many years passed, and he hardly spent any real time with his family. In his heart, he always thought, when things are more stable, I will make it up to them. When work is lighter, I will spend more time with my loved ones. However, life didn't wait for him. One morning, his mother suddenly fell ill, her condition so severe that she had to be rushed to the hospital. He rushed there, but everything happened too quickly. That night was the first time in many years that he sat by his mother's side, holding her hand without thinking about work. But it was also the last time he could do so. His mother passed away quietly on a gloomy afternoon. While tidying his mother's belongings, he found an old photo she had kept in her wardrobe. It was a family photo taken 7 years ago. He looked at the photo and seemed to collapse. For 7 years, he had not once sat down to eat a full meal with his mother. For 7 years, he had not once asked her if she was well. For 7 years, he thought he had plenty of time to love her. But it turned out that photo was the last time his mother smiled during a complete meal. At that moment, Hoa burst into tears, tears streaming down incessantly. He held the photo to his chest and said only one very quiet sentence. "I wish I had been home, eating with my mother that day." That story made me think a lot. We always think that tomorrow will come, but who knows if tomorrow will still be there? We often think there is plenty of time to live, to love, to care for loved ones. But in reality, no one knows how long that time is. Hoa's way of living is not uncommon. Many people around us are also living that way. There are children who grow up with their grandparents, but rarely run to hug them. There are mothers who long for a family meal, but wait indefinitely for their children to return. There are fathers who go to bed early because they can no longer wait for their children. We always think we will make up for it tomorrow. But when tomorrow is gone, all that is left is regret. The Buddha taught that yesterday is gone. Tomorrow has not yet come. Only today is the most real. So we must know how to live today fully. We humans are always absorbed in pursuing too many things and forget that nothing is more important than a peaceful heart. Suddenly, I remember the words in the Dhammapada. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. The more I read it, the more deeply I understand it. Why are many talented people still lonely? Why do many wealthy people still find life empty? Because they have never lived fully in each breath of the present. Their minds keep rushing forward or backward, never stopping to touch the moment that is happening. What could be sadder than a life lived without knowing one is living? I want to clarify the psychology of wasting life in thought. When the mind does not know how to dwell in peace, it will generate countless questions, countless worries. Why this? What if that? What if it doesn't work out? If it works, will I lose it? These questions are like a turbulent underground current, sweeping our minds away from the present. And then we live like someone whose mind is in another place, leaving only the body here. That is not living. That is existing. Stillness in the present moment is living. Taking a deep breath and exhaling gently is also living. Smiling at loved ones is also living. Listening to the rain outside the window is also living. Yet, we think that we must achieve something great to be called living. We forget that life is made up of countless small moments. Losing small moments can mean losing an entire life. I remember once meeting a teacher I respected. The teacher said that when the mind is too tired, you must stop. Stopping is not giving up, but giving the mind a place to breathe. Living without a place to breathe, you will find life infinitely heavy. Today is the only moment you can love and cherish. Tomorrow is not for worrying, but for preparing a peaceful mind. Yesterday is not for regretting, but for learning lessons and moving forward. When you know how to love today, you will find that everything becomes lighter. Because, in fact, today is the most precious gift that life bestows. Just by knowing how to live genuinely with it, you will not need too many other things. My dear friend, if your heart is burdened with too many thoughts, too many unresolved issues, I hope you will take some real time for yourself. Don't think anymore. Take a deep breath, place your hand on your chest, and listen to your heartbeat. If you can still feel that beat, it means you still have the opportunity to live truly and fully. Tell yourself that today is the only opportunity for peace and joy. For once, eat a meal without thinking about anything else. For once, turn off your phone when talking to your loved ones. For once, look up at the sky for a long time to realize how small you are and to cherish every moment. For once, stand still and ask yourself if you are living or running. Because if you are living, every moment is precious. If you are just running, time will silently slip away without waiting for you to return. I would like to conclude this part with a sincere reminder that human life is very short. Do not waste it on overthinking. Sometimes, what you are looking for is not a better future, but a gentle heart right here, today. Live. Don't wait. Love. Don't hesitate. Hold your loved one's hands and smile, because you don't know which time will be the last. The Buddha once taught that one breath can create happiness, so do not let that breath pass in inattentiveness. The present is a gift. Today is a miracle. A person who knows how to live is a person who knows how to stop and how to cherish. If you can hear these words and feel your heart stir, even just a little, then I believe you have touched the deepest part of life. And when the mind thinks less, you will find life suddenly light as a breeze, beautiful as morning dew, peaceful as your own smile in this moment. You know, the more years I live, the more I realize something that seems simple, yet is very difficult to live by. That is, in life, everything is only temporary. today's joy will change, and today's sadness will become a thing of the past. People get tired because they chase after desires, and they become burdened because they carry too much in their hearts. When we understand impermanence, every event that happens is like a passing breeze, coming and going. Nothing truly belongs to us forever. That is why, the more we mature, the more we learn to let go of things not worth holding on to. Young people often think they must hold on tightly to maintain happiness. Experienced people understand that knowing when to let go is true peace. I once heard a teacher explain that the root of suffering is clinging to things that are not real. This body is impermanent, emotions are impermanent, and relationships are also impermanent. Yet we mistakenly think they are eternal. We hold, we embrace, we cling, we torment ourselves. And then we ourselves are hurt by these very things. Many people think letting go is failure, forgiving is weakness, abandoning a relationship is defeat. But in reality, letting go is a form of growth. It's when we no longer let life drag us along, but actively choose a lighter path for ourselves. Letting go is putting a stone down from your hand. When your hand is light, your heart can be at peace. In Buddhism, letting go does not mean avoidance. Letting go is clearly seeing the nature of things and then allowing them to return to their rightful place. I remember the teaching about suffering in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is not caused by life being difficult, but by our desire for everything to go our way. We want to be loved, but not hurt. We want to be trusted, but not disappointed. We want to be cherished, but not abandoned. The more we desire, the more we hurt. The deeper we cling, the more we suffer. When we understand this, we know that letting go is how we free ourselves from the chains of greed, anger, and ignorance. Letting go is opening the door for a cool breeze to enter. It is granting freedom to ourselves. Every time I talk to people, I find that most of what tires them out is not external matters, but the things they impose on themselves internally. Some people are tormented for years by an insulting word. Some people broke up long ago, but still cannot move on. Some people lose a small amount of money, but harbor resentment for a lifetime. The more they think, the more they hurt. The more they cling, the more tired they become. The nature of the human mind is to always want control. We fear loss, so we hold on. We fear disadvantage, so we embrace. We fear others thinking we are weak, so we strain. But the more we strain, the heavier the burden. The harder we try to hold on, the more our hands hurt. Sometimes, just one moment of letting go can make years of exhaustion disappear. Try to imagine, in a single day, how many things burden your mind. Work not going as planned, misunderstandings with loved ones, betrayal by friends, pressure of making a living, and trivial things like traffic jams, noise, criticisms. The mind is like a cup that overflows when it holds too much. When it contains only heavy things, the cup becomes a burden. Letting go is how we pour some out so we have room for peace. If we don't clear our own minds, no one else can do it for us. No one can drink our sorrow for us. No one can untangle us from painful memories. Only we can put it down. Only we know how tired we are. I want to tell you the story of Hung, a man in his mid-30s. Hung owned a small grocery store in a rural market. He worked diligently, living honestly and kindly. His best friend was Tuan. Their families lived close by since childhood. They grew up playing together, so their friendship was very strong. One day, Tuan asked Hung to borrow a rather large sum of money for his business. Trusting his friend, Hung didn't hesitate. He gathered all his savings from years of hard work and gave it to Tuan. But then Tuan left, without a word, unreachable, and never returned. The shock almost broke Hung. He suffered from the financial loss and the betrayal of friendship. He resented, he raged, he swore he would never forgive. From a cheerful person, Hung became completely different, not wanting to talk to anyone, sleeping poorly, eating little. His health deteriorated, and his grocery store was always as gloomy as his own mind. For 3 years, Hung lived in hatred. Every time someone mentioned Tuan, he would flare up. Every time he looked at the debt ledger, he sighed. He placed an invisible but incredibly heavy stone on his shoulder. One day, Hung was crossing the small river near the market to deliver goods. On the bridge, a child about 8 years old was playing with stones. The child picked up a fairly large stone, tried to hold it in their hand. After a while, their hand grew tired, and they immediately dropped it into the water. The stone splashed down and sank. The child smiled brightly, as if relieved of a burden, and said to the person standing nearby, "Holding a stone is so tiring. Letting it go makes you light." Hearing those words, Hung felt as if someone had struck his heart. He stood still for a long time. The wind blowing across his face brought a strange feeling. He suddenly realized that he had also been holding a stone for 3 years. A stone of hatred, disappointment, and the pain of betrayal. That evening, Hung returned home. He opened a drawer, took out the stack of debt papers, the lawsuits he hadn't filed, the papers he had written to record all his grievances. All were evidence of the anger he refused to let go of. He lit an incense stick and burned everything. The flickering flames illuminated his face, no longer showing indignation, only weariness and a hint of lightness he hadn't felt in a long time. When the papers turned to ash, Hung felt his heart lighten as well. That moment was like the day he came back to life after 3 years submerged in darkness. After that, Hung no longer mentioned Tuan. He didn't seek compensation, didn't stubbornly demand back what was lost. He returned to caring for his health, looking after his family, and opening his heart to life. His grocery store was bright again as before. People saw Hung smiling more, sleeping better, looking healthier. Someone asked, "Did you really forgive him and forget the past?" Hung just smiled and said, "I didn't forgive anyone. I only forgave myself. I put the stone down so my hand could be light." Hung's story reminds me of a Zen koan. Put down a stone, and your hand will be light. So why do you keep holding it? The saying sounds simple, but it opens up a profound perspective on life. Sometimes we blame others for hurting us, but in reality, the person who hurts us the longest is ourselves. When we keep clinging to a wound and refuse to let go, the more the wound scratches, the more it hurts. The more we poke at it, the harder it is to heal. Sadness is the same. The tighter we hold it, the more we suffer. I like a teaching in the Dhammapada. It says that anger is like grasping a hot coal to throw at someone else, but the person burned first is yourself. Holding grudges is burning yourself with the fire of anger. Holding resentment is tying yourself with the rope of suffering. This body is impermanent, and the mind is even more so. One thought arises and then ceases. One deep thought comes and goes. If we know how to let everything pass like flowing water, not holding on, not forcing, then the heart will naturally be as quiet as a calm lake. When the mind is calm, wisdom shines. When wisdom shines, we see clearly that nothing is worth carrying in our hearts for a lifetime. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go is looking back at the situation with clarity and understanding in our hearts that everyone has their own karma. They wronged us because they were pulled by their karma. Our suffering from that event is also due to our karma. Cause and effect in life are not mistaken. Everyone has their own path to walk. If we keep clinging to the past, it's like locking the door of our own heart. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is conquering oneself. Letting go is putting down a burden so the road ahead in life is lighter. When I share this with some people, they say it's easy to talk about, but incredibly difficult to let go. That's true. Letting go is not something that happens overnight. But if we don't train our minds to let go of small things, then when we face big things, we will be very tired. Try to look at everything through the eyes of someone who understands impermanence. Whatever comes will go. Whoever stays, the connection remains. Whoever leaves us, the connection has ended. Everything that happens has its reason. When we no longer resist the flow, the mind naturally lightens. You ask how to let go? I think the first step is to realize what you are holding on to. If we haven't even seen the stone in our hand, we cannot put it down. Sit with yourself for a moment. Breathe deeply. Look straight into your heart. Who are you angry at? What are you sad about? What are you regretting? What memory are you holding on to? The more honest you are, the easier it will be to free yourself. The second step is to accept that what happened has already happened. Acceptance is the foundation of letting go. The third step is to open your heart to forgive, not to forgive them, but to forgive yourself. And the final step is to live on. Live with the peaceful mind you have just regained. When we know how to let go, we will realize that life is much easier to breathe. When the mind thinks less, the heart worries less. When the heart knows contentment, sorrow does not arise. Letting others have the opportunity to leave is also giving yourself the opportunity to live better. You were not born to carry things that hurt you forever. You were born to be light, to be happy, to walk freely through life. I hope you don't wait until you reach the absolute bottom of pain to let go. Don't wait until your heart is utterly exhausted to release. Remember Hung's story. Remember the stone the child dropped into the river. Light or heavy, it lies in our choice. When your hand is tired, don't strain anymore. When your heart is too sad, don't cling more. When tomorrow is still very long, don't let today become a shadow weighing down your life. If one day you feel too tired, stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself, from today, I will learn to let go. I choose peace. I choose lightness. I choose serenity. You deserve that. You know, in life, there are many things that tire us, But perhaps nothing exhausts us as much as the waves of emotion within our own hearts. People often think that external circumstances make us suffer. Situations make us suffer. Others make us suffer. But then, after living long enough, we understand that the true root lies within the mind. Our anger can flare up just because of a careless remark. Sadness can spread just because of a stranger's glance. Human emotions are as fragile as a fleeting breeze, yet strong enough to overturn an entire life. Therefore, the condition for the mind to think less, for the heart to have fewer worries, sometimes lies simply in our ability to control our emotions. I often think that this life is like a river. Water flowing is cool. Wind blowing is light. But when the current is stirred by sediment, the surface becomes turbid. Our mind is similar. When stirred by emotions, we can no longer see anything clearly. We easily say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, make the wrong decisions. Nothing is more dangerous than an angry person with authority. And nothing is more pitiful than someone who loses themselves because of emotion. Yet, what is noteworthy is that these fits of anger, these bouts of sadness, do not come from outside, but from within us. In Buddhist teachings, emotions are seen as continuous waves of arising and ceasing. They come and go, but when we cling to them, we suffer. Scriptures call that state anger, san. Anger is when the mind is consumed by fire. Anger is wrath, resentment, explosive reactions. Anger is a sharp blade, and the person who holds it tightest is ourselves. The Buddha taught that anger is one of the three poisons of the mind, along with greed and ignorance. These three poisons erode merit, causing us to lose blessings, wisdom, and peace. A practitioner is not someone who no longer has emotions, but someone who knows how to observe emotions, knows how not to let emotions control them. A skilled practitioner is not someone who silently endures and suppresses until they explode, but someone who knows how to recognize, embrace, and transform emotions. That is true mastery. I have met many people who say they are not hot-tempered, but in reality, they just haven't encountered the right situation. Emotions are like dormant beasts within each of us. When touched, they awaken. If we don't know how to tame them, they will run wild in our hearts and destroy what we cherish most. Many people lose their families over angry words. Many people lose friends over uncontrolled actions. Many people lose their self-image just because of a few minutes of temper. Emotions are not wrong. Emotions are a part of being human. But if we let them lead us, then we are living like a leaf in the wind, blown wherever it goes, broken wherever it crashes. Human psychology, when angry, often erupts very quickly, sometimes in just a second. But that very second can create consequences that last for many years. Modern science also proves that when angry, the nervous system becomes highly active, the heart races, and the brain releases hormones that make it difficult to think clearly. Therefore, when angry, we often say things we later regret. When angry, we do things we would normally never do. That moment of losing control can be the source of so much suffering. Many people realize this too late. They watch the good things in life drift away, and then regret. But regret is just regret. If anger creates karma, then karma will operate. To help you visualize the power of emotional mastery, I want to tell you the story of Master Fong, a 45-year-old man who teaches music at an art center. Everyone who looked at him thought he was gentle. He had a scholarly demeanor, kind eyes, and a calm way of playing the piano. But not everyone knew he had a great weakness, a short temper. Whenever a student played incorrectly, he would shout. When someone wasn't focused, he would growl. Many children would tremble just hearing his footsteps. He didn't mean to be bad. He just always wanted his students to achieve good results. But deep down, he knew he had a problem. He often told himself that as long as the students tried hard, he wouldn't get angry. But life doesn't always go our way. Some students were focused, some were distracted, some loved to play. The more he tried to control the class, the more he lost control of himself. Once, during a rehearsal for the end-of-year performance, Master Fong lost his temper because a student played the wrong rhythm too many times. He slammed his conducting baton onto the table, startling the entire class. The boy had tried his best, but because he was nervous, he played even more incorrectly. When the teacher approached, his face red, his voice harsh, the boy burst into tears. Through his tears, he said something that struck the teacher like a powerful blow to the heart. He said he was more afraid of the teacher than of making a mistake. Those words made the atmosphere in the room seem to freeze. The teacher stood still. For the first time, he saw the look of fright his student had for him. Not respect, not trust, but fear. That night, the teacher couldn't sleep at home. The student's words kept echoing in his head. He remembered himself as a child. He once had a very strict teacher. That teacher scolded a lot. Back then, little Fong was also afraid. He remembered the feeling of both wanting to try harder and feeling hurt. And now, he was repeating what he himself had once feared. He understood that if he continued like this, many children would hate music, just because they feared him, the very music that was the most beautiful thing in his life. Thinking about that, the teacher felt heartbroken. He decided he had to change. But changing something deep within is not easy. He knew he couldn't stop being hot-tempered immediately, but he could practice calmness. A few days later, Master Fong visited a temple. In a conversation with the abbot, he asked, "How can I be less hot-tempered?" The monk looked at him with gentle eyes and said, "A capable person is not someone who doesn't get angry. A capable person is someone who knows they are angry. When you know you are angry, you are no longer angry." From then on, the monk taught him a very simple practice called the 5-second tranquility practice. Whenever he felt anger about to surge, he just needed to stop, place his hand on his chest, close his eyes, and count from 1 to silently. Each number represented a breath. 1 was inhaling, 2 was exhaling, 3 was inhaling, 4 was exhaling, 5 was returning. It was simple, yet remarkably effective. From that day on, whenever a student made a mistake, he no longer shouted. He stopped, took a breath, exhaled. His mind settled. His voice became softer, his eyes gentler, and the whole class seemed to change with him. The atmosphere became warmer. The children were no longer afraid of making mistakes. They just tried harder. The teacher also found himself gentler with himself. The miracle was not in those 5 seconds, but in the return to within. When we turn inward, we see clearly that anger is just a cloud passing by and dissipating. It's not worth losing loved ones over, not worth losing ourselves over. In the Dhammapada, there is a teaching that says, though one may conquer 1,000 times 1,000 men in battle, yet he is the greatest conqueror who conquers himself. Eliminating anger is almost impossible, but mastering anger is true strength. When we are angry with someone, we think we are teaching them a lesson. But in reality, we are inadvertently burning our own blessings. Anger causes us to lose blessings, peace, and clarity. Angry people often say the most hurtful things, and afterwards, they are often the ones who hurt the most. Because words are arrows. Once shot, they cannot be retrieved. The Buddha once taught that words create karma. Saying the wrong thing creates karma that cannot be erased. Saying the right thing brings good. Therefore, skilled practitioners try to speak when their minds are calm. And when their minds are agitated, they stop. A strong person is not someone who shouts loudly, not someone who always wins arguments, not someone who must win every debate. A truly strong person is someone who knows how to control their own heart, someone who can speak kind words when others unintentionally cause annoyance, someone who can smile when things don't go as planned, someone who can remain silent when someone intentionally provokes them, someone who can stand firm when others' hearts are in chaos. I want you to understand that mastering emotions does not mean you have to suppress or ignore them. Suppression only fills you inside with unresolved issues. If suppressed for too long, one day it will explode. Mastery is looking at an emotion, naming it, and breathing with it, as if you are hugging a crying child to comfort them. When we breathe, emotions settle. When we settle, wisdom opens. When wisdom opens, we know what to say and when to remain silent. You can start with the 5-second practice that Master Feng received. When you are angry with someone, stop all reactions. Don't speak immediately. Don't act immediately. Simply breathe. 1 inhale, 1 exhale, just 5 breaths. That's enough to change the outcome of a conversation. You can place your hand on your chest to remind yourself that you are here. You are returning to yourself. That is the moment you reclaim control of your mind. If you maintain that habit, you will gradually realize that anger no longer leads you astray as it did before. In life, there will always be people who displease you, people who speak tactlessly, people who work slowly, people who misunderstand you. But instead of reacting immediately, try looking at them through the eyes of someone who understands karma. Everyone is carrying their own burden. Everyone is practicing on their own path. Some people don't have enough wisdom to say kind words. Some people don't have enough compassion to understand others. When you look at it this way, you will find them more pitiable than anger-inducing. I believe that when you learn to master your emotions, your life will become much lighter. You will no longer be led astray by the words of others. You will no longer easily lose your temper. Before small things, you will know when to be silent and when to speak up. You will know that what comes from anger will lead to negative consequences. You will know that staying calm is not a sign of weakness, but because you are strong enough not to destroy what is good. The calmer your mind, the brighter your life. The more contented your heart, the fewer your worries. I hope you understand that in the journey of spiritual practice, in the ordinary sense, the most skilled person is the one who can control themselves. You don't need to become a perfect person. Just progress a little more each day than yesterday. Each time you get angry, take one more breath. Each time you are sad, embrace your heart a little more. Each time someone makes things difficult, look at them with a more compassionate gaze. Then you will see that today's you is different from yesterday's you. Then you will see that peace is something you can entirely create without anyone's permission. My dear friend, the older I get, the more I realize that human life is like an endlessly flowing river. Sometimes it is calm and still. At other times, it swirls with waves and storms. We humans live in constant change, yet sometimes we think we can hold on to everything. And then, when we lose something, when things don't go our way, we blame life, blame others, blame fate. People often say this life is impermanent. Here today, gone tomorrow, happy today, sad tomorrow, reunion today, separation tomorrow. Nothing stands still. Nothing lasts forever. All the noise out there, all the fluctuations of the world, all the changes in people's hearts are actually just waves rolling on the outside. What makes us tired is not the waves themselves, but the fact that we let ourselves be swept away by each rhythm of life. Sometimes I sit quietly in a small coffee shop, surrounded by the sounds of cars, horns, people calling out, hurried footsteps. Yet, for some reason, in that moment, I feel a strange sense of peace. It resides in my breath, in the way I gently bring mindfulness into each sensation. At that moment, I understood one thing. Peace is not something found in a quiet countryside, not in high mountains or vast oceans, nor in escaping from life. Peace is something we must awaken ourselves. Peace is right where we stand, right in every breath we take. Many people think that to have peace, they must go to a very pure, very quiet place to escape the bustling city. But then I met too many people who left the city to live in the countryside. There were green trees, birds singing, cool breezes, but their hearts were still full of worries and unease. They worried about work, about the future, about money, about relationships, about everything. Living in the countryside, but with a restless mind, no matter how quiet the surroundings, they could not find peace. Conversely, there were also people living in the crowded, busy city. So busy they didn't have a moment to spare. Yet, their minds were very steady. They could smile amidst the honking of cars, be calm amidst work pressure, and be gentle amidst challenging relationships. They were not swept away by life, nor did they let their minds chase after external things. According to Buddhist teachings, the reason people suffer is not because of circumstances, but because their minds run wild. If the mind is chaotic, even sitting in a temple brings no peace. If the mind is tranquil, even standing in the market, it is as firm as a mountain. The Buddha once taught that the mind is the root of all phenomena. When the mind is at peace, the environment is at peace. When the mind is chaotic, the environment is chaotic. A person who knows how to collect their mind will naturally find peace without needing to change their circumstances. This sounds simple, but is the greatest lesson of human life. The Phat Phap Lin Ung channel finds that the human mind is very easily influenced. If someone says something that doesn't align with our views, we immediately get annoyed. If a plan doesn't go as expected, we worry. If life shifts a little, we already feel uneasy. Our mind is like a leaf blown back and forth by the wind of life. When hurt, the mind drifts to the past. When afraid, the mind races to the future. The past cannot be changed, the future has not happened. Yet, we spend more time in those two places than in the present. Unease does not arise because life is noisy, but because we allow that noise to enter our minds. In my younger years, I also strongly believed that if I could just find a truly quiet place, I would be able to settle down. But then, no matter how many places I went, how many beautiful sights I stood before, how many wild mountains or vast, peaceful oceans I sat amidst, peace only came when my mind chose to stop. The more I lived, the more I understood that meditation is not about escaping life or separating oneself from the world, but about learning to live in the world with an undisturbed mind. Meditation is not hiding in the mountains, but standing in the city with a light heart. I want to tell you the story of Tuan, a friend I knew. Tuan is 30 years old, living in Saigon, a city always bustling with the sounds of vehicles and lights. Tuan is the type of person whose mind gets stressed with just a little noise. His job was demanding. Relationships with colleagues were complicated, and his family was not harmonious. Every day, Tuan felt like he was racing against his own life. Many nights, Tuan would lie down, but his head would still be spinning with ceaseless thoughts. Outsiders saw Tuan as strong and energetic, but inside, Tuan always felt like he was drowning in a sea of waves. One morning, Tuan woke up earlier than usual. It was a day he had been sleepless all night from exhaustion. It was still dark, and the streets were not yet crowded. Tuan stepped out of his house with a heavy heart, and then he heard a strange sound, the sound of a temple bell chiming from a small alley behind. It had been a long time since Tuan had heard that sound. At first, it was a long, gentle resonance, like morning dew. Then, the subsequent chimes followed, full and warm. The bell wasn't loud, but it seemed to pierce straight into Tuan's chest. He stopped walking, stopped thinking, just stood still and listened. In that moment, Tuan felt something very strange. All the tension seemed to melt away. The city was still there. The sound of cars still echoed. But Tuan's heart felt much lighter. He inhaled deeply, as if wanting to draw that bell sound deep inside, then exhaled very slowly, as if letting all the weariness of many days leave his body. He realized that peace was not found in external quietness. Peace was the moment the mind chose to stop. Peace was when he returned to his breath. Tuan told me that after that day, whenever he felt tired, he would just stop for a few seconds, breathe deeply, and listen to the bell sound in his mind. He no longer sought peace in mountains or vast oceans. He found peace in his own breath. Tuan gradually changed. It was still the same job, the same city, the same old pressures, but his mind was no longer swept away as before. He learned to observe his emotions, learned to step back half a step, to see life more clearly. He said that peace is always available. We just need to allow it to appear. What Tuan felt is also the teaching of the Buddha. He once said that the mind is likened to the surface of a lake. When the wind blows, the lake surface ripples, and we cannot see our reflection. When the wind calms, the lake surface is flat like a mirror. When the mind is still, wisdom shines. When the mind shines, life is light. We often think that to have peace, we must change our circumstances. But in reality, circumstances are something we cannot control. The only thing we can control is our minds. A person who knows how to dwell in the present will always find peace and joy, no matter where they are. From Tuan's story, I want to share a lesson with you. Meditation is not sitting cross-legged for a long time. Meditation is not avoiding work or people. Meditation is not forcing oneself to be perfectly still. Meditation is simply knowing that in every breath there is a space for the mind to rest. Meditation is returning to oneself. If you can stand amidst the sound of cars and still maintain a calm breath, you are meditating. If you can sit in a stressful office and still maintain inner clarity, you are meditating. If you can hear unpleasant words from others and your mind is not disturbed, you are meditating. My dear friend, when the heart is content, worries naturally dissipate. When we think less, the mind naturally calms down. When we don't let life sweep us away, peace naturally enters. It all lies within you. No one can give you peace if you refuse to open the door for peace to enter. High mountains cannot give you peace if your mind is still full of storms. The vast ocean cannot give you stillness if your heart is still burdened with worries. The external world will never be perfect, but inside you, there is always a place to return to. Therefore, the Fat Phap Lin Ung channel wants to send you a small method. Whenever you feel yourself about to be swept away by worries, stop and take a deep breath. Don't rush to react. Don't rush to try to control everything. Simply stop, feel the breath entering, and then the breath leaving. When your breath slows down, your mind will naturally stop. When your mind stops, peace will appear. That's all. Very gentle and simple. Don't wait for a day when life is no longer noisy to find peace. That day will never come. Let peace sprout in your heart today. Just by returning to yourself, everything will naturally become clear. There are times when you have to live amidst a very turbulent life. But if your mind is strong enough, you can still maintain a very profound peace. And that very peace will carry you through all the changes of life without fear. You deserve peace and joy. You deserve a light heart. Make it a habit to turn inward, because true peace is not where you go, but how you walk. I always believe that as long as you keep a bright lamp in your heart, no matter how dark it is outside, you will still find your way. In everyone's life, there will be times when we clearly feel the impermanence of life. Things we once thought were forever suddenly vanish like clouds in the sky. Relationships we believed would last a lifetime suddenly slip through our fingers. There are days when we wake up and realize no one is beside us, and the whole world seems to wear a cold, gray hue. All of us will experience that feeling. It gives no warning and asks no permission. It comes as an essential part of the journey of growth. Just as a flower must spend days enclosed in a bud before it blooms, humans often experience profound loneliness before becoming strong. Life's impermanence sometimes causes us to lose our support But precisely because nothing lasts forever, we learn to stand firm on our own 2 feet. Loneliness is a lesson that life has prepared for everyone, like a door that must be opened to step towards freedom. There are moments when you must walk alone to learn to listen to your inner voice. There are paths where no one accompanies you, so you understand that the true value of life is not in how many people are by your side, but in whether you are calm enough to keep going when you are alone. In Buddhist teachings, human loneliness is viewed in a very different light. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering lies in clinging to the ego, relying on external things more than on oneself. When people lose a close relationship, they suffer not only from losing the other person, but because they have allowed a part of themselves to depend on that person. When left alone, they are like a leaf falling into an abyss, bewildered because they don't know what to cling to. In fact, loneliness does not come to make us weak, but to remind us to return to ourselves. In Buddhist philosophy, loneliness is not an enemy, but a stage of transformation. It is a time when we learn to let go of dependence, learn to observe our minds, learn to listen to pain, to understand its true nature. People often fear loneliness because the mind is not used to being still. The more we fear something, the more we avoid it. The more we avoid it, the larger it appears in our minds. But the truth is that no one can avoid moments of being alone. Some people are lonely in a crowd. Some are lonely within their own families. Some people, despite having many friends, still feel empty. Loneliness does not come from lacking people by our side. Loneliness is when our mind cannot find an inner anchor. If our mind is spacious enough, warm enough, understands itself enough, then even living alone, we will not feel cold. But if the mind is empty and restless, even surrounded by many people, we will still feel a deep, unnameable void. Many people, when they fall into loneliness, immediately look for something to fill the void. Some plunge into work, some get lost in social media, some seek a new relationship just to avoid facing the emptiness in their hearts. But these things are just like a thin coat on a cold night. They help us temporarily forget, but cannot heal. Because deep inside, our minds have not yet truly settled. The Buddha taught that to overcome suffering, one must look directly at it. Avoidance only makes it grow larger. Facing loneliness is a way for us to clearly see our true nature. I want to tell you the story of Lien. Lien is 26 years old, living in a small room in the city. She had just gone through a painful breakup. The person she thought would accompany her for many years to come suddenly left coldly. They had many plans, dreamed of a home, and spoke words they thought would never change. But then, just a small setback in life was enough to drive them apart. When he left, Lien felt like she had fallen into a bottomless void. A sense of emptiness spread throughout her body. For many days, she couldn't sleep, nor did she have the mind to work. Her room, originally small, now felt terrifyingly large, so large that she felt lost right in the place she lived. Some evenings, Lien would just sit by the window, looking down at the street below. Cars drove back and forth, horns blared, people talked, footsteps hurried, all mingled together. But in her heart, it was so silent that she could clearly hear her own heartbeat. Lien felt as if the whole world had abandoned her. Her lover was gone. Her friends each had their own lives. Her family was far away, and she felt like she was standing in a vast desert, not knowing which way to go. She used to think she was strong, but when she was alone, she saw how fragile she truly was. One day, when the sadness had lingered for too long, Liane decided to do something she had never done before. She took out an old notebook, opened it, and placed a pen on a blank page. She began to write, not to be read by anyone, not to complain or blame, but simply to dialogue with herself. The first sentence she wrote was, "Today, I am truly very sad." Then she continued to write things she had never dared to say before. She wrote about her disappointment, about the hurt, about the questions no one answered for her. Each line was like opening a door for her to look into the hidden corners of her mind. When she reached the middle of the page, Liane realized that her emotions were not as terrifying as she once thought. The pains she always avoided suddenly became clearer. Seeing them, she no longer felt burdened by them. She understood that, for a long time, she had tried to be strong, to be cheerful, to not let anyone know she was hurting. But that very pretense made her increasingly tired. For the first time in many weeks, Liane allowed herself to be vulnerable, allowed herself to breathe a sigh of relief. Journaling helped her realize that loneliness is not frightening if you know how to listen to it. After writing, Liane sat on the floor, closed her eyes, and placed her hand on her chest. She listened to her breathing. At first, her breath was rapid, but gradually it slowed. She listened carefully to each inhale and exhale. She realized that even if the whole world turned its back on her, her breath was still with her. At that very moment, she realized that no matter who left, she herself was still here, still able to embrace herself with understanding. In that moment, she felt a very gentle peace. Not peace because life had suddenly become more beautiful, but because her mind had chosen to stop. Just by stopping and listening to her breath, Liane understood that she still had an anchor. Her mind no longer drifted with negative thoughts as before. In the following days, whenever she felt empty, Liane would open her notebook and write. Every evening, she would sit still for 3 to 5 minutes to meditate, listening to her breath. Gradually, she realized that loneliness didn't disappear, but it no longer scared her as before. It became a companion, a reminder for her to take better care of her inner self. As the pain subsided, Liane understood something that many adults must go through. Being alone is not weakness. Being alone is a stage for growth. Being alone is a time to rediscover oneself after days of chasing life. Being alone is when you are not disturbed by the voices of others, and you can clearly hear what your heart desires. Liane realized that before, she always needed someone by her side to feel valuable. But when she learned to face herself, she understood that value was not in the hands of others, but within herself. From a Buddhist perspective, Liane's loneliness is a state where the mind is returning to its source. The Buddha once taught that one is one's own island. No one can save oneself from suffering by standing in one's place. All external dependencies are fragile. Only one's own mind is the most stable refuge. When we know how to use our breath to return, when we know how to dialogue with ourselves, we no longer drift in the whirlpool of dependence. The Buddha's teaching on mindfulness is the key to overcoming all feelings of loneliness. Because when we live in mindfulness, our minds no longer run wild, not running to the past, not rushing to the future, but dwelling in the present. And only in the present can we find peace. From Liane's story, we can see that loneliness is not an enemy. Loneliness is a mirror for us to look at the hidden corners of our minds. Loneliness is a lesson for us to learn to love ourselves. Loneliness is a time when life gives us the opportunity to return to our purest essence. If we know how to use this stage correctly, we will grow in a very beautiful way. We will know how to take care of our emotions. We will know how to dialogue with our minds instead of running away. We will know how to understand ourselves instead of criticizing. And once we have overcome loneliness with inner strength, we will no longer fear loss or separation, because we understand that we can stand firm even when we are alone. My dear friend, if you are also experiencing lonely days right now, I want you to know that it doesn't mean you are weak. You are going through a stage that every mature person must experience. Don't try to quickly fill the void with something. Let it exist as part of the healing journey. Try to dialogue with yourself by writing down your true emotions. Practice meditation by simply sitting still and listening to your breath. You will find that loneliness gradually becomes lighter when you dare to face it. The most important thing is that you must treat yourself with gentleness. Don't blame yourself for being sad. Don't force yourself to be strong immediately. Don't deny your emotions. Embrace your mind as we embrace a crying child. Allow your mind to rest. When you understand yourself, when you accept yourself, when you know how to listen to the intimate things in your heart, you will see that loneliness is not a deep burden, but a door opening to a larger space. If you know how to go through loneliness, you will become a liberated person, a person whose happiness no longer depends on anyone else, a person who is content with themselves, a person who does not lose direction when others leave, a person who remains calm when life changes, a person who knows how to place their hand on their chest and feel that their heart is still beating steadily. Please believe that even in the loneliest moments, you are not abandoned. You are being given an opportunity to grow. You are being taught how to build a home within your mind, so that no matter where you go, no matter who you live with, or if you live alone, you will still have a place to return to. The life of every human being, from birth, is placed in the current of impermanence. Like water in a river, it flows endlessly and cannot stand still. Whom we meet, whom we love, whom we walk with, and then whom we part from, all bear the marks of karmic connections. When conditions are right, that person appears in our lives. When conditions are sufficient, we bond. When conditions end, each goes their separate way. It is not because they are bad, nor because we are wrong, but because the river of karmic connections has no bend that can hold back what is natural. When we understand this nature, we suddenly feel much lighter in our hearts, because we no longer see departure as a loss, nor do we see meeting as something we must desperately cling to. We live more fully in every moment of meeting, loving, and being together. Some people enter our lives for only a fleeting moment, but leave behind a lesson we carry for a lifetime. Some people stay with us for a very long time, but only when they leave do we realize that time does not equate to attachment. Karmic connections are like that, taking the form of a passing traveler, but sometimes stopping long enough to sow an unforgettable feeling within us. And when the guest leaves the inn, we learn that not everyone is born to walk with us for an entire lifetime. Knowing this, our hearts become more mature, lighter, and also understand that the word connection in life is not meant to be possessed, but to be respected. Practitioners of Buddhism often say that all relationships in life are due to seeds sown and conditions met from countless past lives. Therefore, anyone we meet today, even if only passing by, has had some connection in the cycle of samsara. Those who come to us with smiles or with sadness, with love or with hurt, are all karmic connections unfolding. When the cause is ripe, the condition blossoms. When the cause fades, the condition ends. Viewing all relationships this way, we will harbor less blame, feel less torment, and understand that every appearance carries its own meaning. There is one thing that everyone must face: separation. We fear separation because we fear losing what is familiar, losing the person we love, losing the part of ourselves we invested in them. But the nature of separation is not to take something away, but to remind us that love is not possession. The departure of one person creates a space for another karmic connection to arise, or opens an opportunity for us to return more deeply to ourselves. The more we mature, the more we see that encounters in life are like buses stopping at a small station. Those on the same journey ride together for a stretch. When the stop arrives, each person gets off according to their own route. Human psychology often fears loss, so when someone leaves, we often react with sadness. We ask why they changed. We blame ourselves for not being good enough. We cling to past moments. But the more we hold on, the heavier our hearts become. People are often stuck in the sadness of things that are no longer, forgetting that separation is a natural part of life. Meeting is inherently a gift, and separation is a reminder that we must cherish when we are still together. If we can change our perspective, we will realize that separation does not diminish the value of love. On the contrary, it makes that feeling more complete because it appeared exactly when we needed it. Once, I happened to be chatting with an elderly aunt, whom everyone in the neighborhood called Aunt 8. I understood the meaning of duyen, karmic connection, in life more deeply. Aunt 8 was 65 years old, her eyes gentle, like someone who had gone through too many upheavals, but still maintained inner peace. When she spoke about her life, she didn't speak with sadness, but with the serenity of someone who clearly understood impermanence. She said that in her youth, she met her husband on a bus passing through the city. At that time, she was a hired laborer, and he was a young factory worker, just starting out. She sat next to him, looking at his long black hair and gentle smile, and her heart felt bright after a tiring day of work. He told her a few small stories, and at the end of that bus ride, they still exchanged lingering glances. From that bus ride, they became husband and wife, building a small family together. It was also from a bus ride that their marital connection blossomed like a flower in its season. But then, life does not stand still. After more than 40 years together, Aunt 8 bid her husband farewell for the last time, also on a bus. This time, it was an ambulance. He was seriously ill. She sat holding his hand throughout the journey, from home to the hospital. She recounted that at that time, her heart no longer hurt as she had expected, because throughout their lives, they had given each other enough love. She gently told him, "Our connection ends here. If you must go, go peacefully. I will thank you and see you off with all my respect. Aunt 8 said that every time she recalls it, she no longer cries, but feels warm-hearted, because meeting and loving someone is a great blessing in life. She said something that I will always remember. When a connection comes, we welcome it. When it ends, we send it off joyfully, thank it, and let go. It sounds simple, but one must live an entire lifetime to truly understand it. In Buddhist teachings, it is taught that all unions and separations rely on karmic conditions. The Buddha once said that when conditions are sufficient, people meet. When conditions end, they part. Sadness or joy lies within the heart of the person facing it. If we view those who come into our lives as a blessing, our hearts will be light. If we view departure as a loss, our hearts will be heavy. Just like a flower that blooms and then fades, no one blames the flower for falling, nor does anyone demand it bloom forever. People in life are the same. Their presence is a gift. Their departure is a new chapter opening for us. This process of coming together and separating is the natural law of impermanence. No one can avoid it. Only those who understand find peace. Those who try to resist suffer. From Aunt 8's story, we understand that when we view a karmic connection with gratitude instead of clinging, our hearts naturally become more open and lighter. People who pass through our lives, even for a short while, leave a part of themselves with us. Sometimes it's kindness. Sometimes it's a lesson. Sometimes it's a deeper appreciation for life. Every trace is worth thanking. There is no meaningless encounter, nor is there any separation that occurs without carrying its own message. When we understand this, we are calm enough to smile even at things that once broke our hearts. To apply this to life, we need to learn to look at all relationships with a mindful heart. When you meet someone, cherish them as a qui guest visiting your life. When someone leaves, send them off gently, for you understand that they have fulfilled their role in your journey. When you love someone, love them sincerely, without placing too great expectations on them. When you lose someone, allow yourself to be sad, but don't turn that sadness into a burden. We learn to turn inward and take care of ourselves, knowing that happiness does not depend on holding on to someone, but on our own ability to let go and be grateful. Perhaps the person sitting next to us today is just a companion for a stretch of the road. Perhaps the person we love most will one day leave because the connection has run its course. It is also possible that the person we once considered everything will one day become just a memory. But that does not diminish the value of the feeling. On the contrary, it makes us understand more deeply that living a human life is not about clinging, but about loving fully every moment we have together. As long as we live with all our hearts, even if the connection ends, we will have no regrets. Life is a grand inn. We are travelers. Those who come and go are fellow travelers. When we understand that everyone's presence has a reason, and their departure is also an essential part of life, we will no longer suffer as much as before. We learn to put our hands together in gratitude for those who come and those who go, grateful for all the joys and sorrows that have shaped us today. And so, we walk on life's journey with a lighter, more peaceful, and more liberated heart. The life of every human being always begins from a place that, when we have traveled far and look back, we realize was the most peaceful place we ever had. That place had no gold or jewels, no glamour of the places we always dreamed of setting foot in. But it had something that we would find difficult to find anywhere else in our lives: the unconditional love of parents. The more we grow, the more we realize that life flows quickly, like water. The things we thought we had plenty of time to do are actually slowly slipping away, little by little. Just yesterday, we still saw Dad healthy and Mom smiling brightly. Yet, after just a few years, the crow's feet around Mom's eyes, Dad's gradually bent back begin to awaken us to the truth that impermanence spares no one. The person who carried all our storms when we were little, now we ourselves must face the fear of the finite nature of those we love. In East Asian philosophy, the home is where the soul rests after external fatigues, and that place truly becomes a home only when Mom and Dad are still there. When we embark on life, we gradually forget this. We get caught up in work, pressured by busyness, distracted by relationships. Then, one day, when we look back, we are startled to realize Mom and Dad have aged without us knowing. But we were not present in the years they needed us most. Some people only realize halfway through their lives that all their parents' efforts were for them to live lighter than they did. Yet, we use busyness as an excuse to live further away from them each day. This is a sadness that many adults have experienced. According to Buddhist teachings, the merits of parents are immeasurable. The Sutra on Filial Piety teaches that even if you carry your parents on your back for thousands of miles, even if you offer golden temples, gems, and treasures, you cannot repay the grace of their bringing you into existence and raising you. Buddhist teachings remind us that there are two living Buddhas in this life whom we always forget: our father and our mother. One gave us a body, one gave us breath. Both gave us life. A Buddhist practitioner understands that filial piety is not a formality, not waiting until one is successful to offer gifts, but it is care, presence, and gratitude for parents while they are still with us. Because one day, no matter how much we cry, we will not be able to hear Dad's voice again. No matter how much money we earn, we will not be able to buy Mom's smile. That is why the Buddha taught that caring for parents while they are alive is more precious than all other merits. The human psyche is truly strange. The older we get, the more we want freedom, the more we want to reach out, and the more we want to prove ourselves. We think our parents will always be there, so we keep going and going, forgetting that our parents are moving towards an end point, very slowly, but very surely. When we were little, our parents were always ready to sacrifice time for us. But when we grow up, few are willing to sacrifice time for their parents. We treat calling home as something that can be left for tomorrow. We think a family meal can be left for next week. We believe that our parents won't be sad that we are busy, but deep down in the hearts of every parent, what they wish for is not material things, not expensive gifts, but just our inquiry after a tiring day, just a small meal with enough warmth and conversation. The truth is, parents don't want to bother us, so when we ask, they try to appear fine. Parents speak little, but their silence is what truly stings a child's heart when they finally understand. There is a story that I think anyone who hears it will see a reflection of themselves in it. It's the story of Thao, a 33-year-old woman working in IT with a busy schedule. She always used work as an excuse not to visit home because every day had urgent Tao. Every week had projects. Every month had plans to complete. Thao told herself that she would visit her parents when she had free time. But the truth is that for an adult, what is called free time is often very hard to come by. One Sunday, Thao decided to go home after many months of not appearing. When she stepped into the yard, she saw her father bent over, sweeping leaves. His back was much more stooped than before. Her mother was sitting in the kitchen, picking vegetables, her hair much grayer than Thao had realized. The dinner table was set very simply, but every dish was something she had loved since childhood. Thao looked at the table with 3 pairs of chopsticks, but her parents sat silently, waiting for her. They didn't complain, didn't ask why she had taken so long to come home, just smiled and said it was a beautiful day, so the whole family could eat together. That moment made a lump form in Tao's throat, as if something was caught there. In that very moment, she realized she had neglected the most important thing in her life. After that meal, Thao decided to dedicate 1 day a week to going home, no matter how busy work was. She understood that parents are like a countdown clock. Each day that passes is a moment of time lost that can never be regained. And she also understood that no journey is so far that you cannot return. No job is so important that you trade your time for your parents. Because when parents are still alive, we have a place to lean on, someone to confide all our weaknesses to. But when parents are gone, we have to learn to be strong on our own, with a heart that always feels empty. In Buddhist scriptures, there are many reminders about filial piety. The Buddha taught that caring for one's parents is the foundation of all blessings, because parents are the greatest field of merit in one's life. When we treat our parents well, we are sowing blessings for ourselves. When we are indifferent to our parents, we are depleting our blessings. One can build a great career. One can achieve extraordinary things. But if one forgets filial piety, all achievements become incomplete. The patriarchs also taught that when parents are alive, blessings remain. When parents pass away, blessings also diminish. If you want a peaceful life, if you want a mind with fewer worries, start by taking care of your parents, because that is the fastest way to heal karma, to cultivate good intentions in your mind, and to make life more auspicious. The lesson from Thao's story is very gentle, but has a powerful impact. Our parents are aging every day. They don't wait for us to be successful to love us, nor do they wait for us to be perfect to be proud. Their love is unconditional. Whether we are right or wrong, whether we succeed or fail, our parents always stand behind us like an ever-open door. When we understand this, we will cherish every remaining moment more. Because being with our parents is the only place where we can return with our most complete souls. No need to hide, no need to try, no need to put on a facade. That place is the safest haven in a person's life. To apply this to life, we can start with the smallest things. If you are too busy to go home immediately, call home every day to ask a few questions. If you work far away, set aside a portion of your income to help your parents, even if they don't ask. If you can arrange it, go home for a meal every week so your parents know you still remember them. When talking to your parents, be more patient, gentler, because parents always fear becoming a burden to their children. Let them know that you love them, that they are important in your life, that no matter how old you get, you are still their child who needs their love. And if there's anything you need to say it while you still can. Don't wait until there's no opportunity left to regret. A word of thanks, a hug, a meal filled with love can sometimes be more valuable than any gift. As we go through many experiences, we will understand that we travel to many places, but there is only one place that brings us peace, being with our parents. And if one day we return home and can still hear our Father call our name, can still see our mother bringing a hot meal waiting for us, that is the greatest happiness life can offer. Parents are still here. Happiness is still here. Cherish it while time still allows. In the journey of a human life, we often see suffering before we realize happiness. This is because, by instinct, people tend to look at what is lacking, at what is incomplete, at unfinished dreams. We are always running after what we don't have, forgetting to look back at what is present. Yet, life is as fragile as a dewdrop on a leaf. Everyone will go through ups and downs, and suddenly realize that happiness sometimes does not lie in grand things, but is present in every small and ordinary moment. Some people spend half their lives searching for peace, but only when they stop do they find that peace lies right within their own grateful heart. When we open our hearts and know how to say thank you, our souls become light like a leaf, letting go with the breeze. Just as water that knows how to flow around a stone will no longer be stubborn. When people know gratitude, they will not suffer in their hearts for too long. The Buddha taught that humans can transform negative karma not only through spiritual practice, but also through their attitude towards life. Gratitude is one of the most miraculous practices because it is like sunlight shining into the darkest parts of the heart, helping us see more clearly the value of what is happening in our lives. Many people ask why difficulties keep surrounding them. Why is life always so hard? But sometimes it's not that life is too harsh, but that we forget to look at what we possess. A complete breath, a warm meal, a home that shelters from sun and rain, or simply a peaceful night's sleep. These things seem ordinary, but are blessings that not everyone has. When we understand that life is impermanent, we will know how to cherish, how to bow our heads in thanks for even the smallest things. In Buddhist teachings, gratitude and filial piety are fundamental to the ethics of a practitioner. Gratitude to parents for their effort in giving birth and raising us. Gratitude to teachers for opening our wisdom. Gratitude to life for giving us experiences to grow. Gratitude even for adversity, because it cultivates resilience within us. When we are grateful, we do not complain, do not bemoan our fate, do not resent life, but view everything that comes and goes as an essential part of cause and effect and karmic forces. A grateful mind is like fertile soil that nourishes the seeds of peace and joy. Once sown, no suffering can last too long within us, because a grateful person will not burden their mind with the weight of unsatisfactory things. They see every challenge as an opportunity to learn. People often carry the psychology of looking at suffering first. When difficulties arise, we easily sigh. When we encounter loss, we easily become resentful. When we are hurt, we easily nurture hatred. This is because the mind has not been trained in fullness and completeness. Many people do not know that it is precisely resentment and comparison that cause us to suffer longer than any loss. When we keep looking at what we lack, we will always find life unfair. When we look at what others have, we will always feel discontent. But when we look at what is present, we will feel complete. Gratitude has the power, like cool water, nourishing a withered heart, helping our perspective on life change in a very gentle yet profound way. Some people are given many precious things in life, but do not know how to cherish them. They see what they have as a given. Only when they lose it do they regret and wish they had known to say thank you sooner. A person who knows how to cherish is someone who sees value even when it is present, not someone who waits for it to leave to awaken. Many people seek secrets to healing, but forget that gratitude is the simplest and most effective medicine. When we are grateful for misfortunes, they no longer pierce us with pain. When we are grateful for those who hurt us, our hearts soften and no longer carry hatred. When we are grateful for tiring days, we will find ourselves still resilient enough to keep going. Gratitude is how we resolve much karma in life. I want to tell you the story of Nam, a person who once fell into the depths of mental exhaustion. Nam is a young man, 30 years old, who used to have a stable job, but due to pressure and prolonged challenges, he fell into depression. He felt his life become heavy. Everything seemed to wear a gray color. He didn't want to meet anyone, didn't want to talk, and found no joy in anything. One day, during a consultation with a psychiatrist, Nam was advised to try a method he considered too simple to help him change. The doctor said, "Every night before going to bed, close your eyes and write down in a notebook 3 small things from your day that you feel grateful for." Nam was surprised and thought this held no meaning. How could someone living in emptiness be grateful for anything? But having no other choice, Nam tried to follow the advice. On the first day, Nam sat looking at the notebook, not knowing what to write. After a very long time, he could only write a few simple lines, such as grateful for the cool weather today, grateful for having food to eat, or grateful for a peaceful afternoon nap. He read them back and wondered if such ordinary things needed to be grateful for. Yet, he persevered. On the 3rd day, the 4th day, and then, by the end of the week, Nam began to realize there were many things he had never noticed before. A kind inquiry from a colleague, a smile from a neighbor's child, an afternoon spent sitting peacefully by the window. Each small thing suddenly became a source of light, warming a part of his soul. Nam realized that life was not just full of darkness. It was just that he had not been looking in the right direction before. Each time he wrote down 3 things he was grateful for, he felt as if he was examining himself and finding positive pieces that had been forgotten. Time passed, and by the 30th day, Nam no longer felt the heavy burden in his heart as before. He shared that the most miraculous thing was that when people start to recognize things to be grateful for, suffering naturally no longer lingers. A grateful person always has light in their heart. He said that it was gratitude that pulled him back to life, not because it made difficulties disappear, but because it made him stronger to face them. Nam called it inner healing. In many scriptures, the Buddha taught that those who know gratitude and repay kindness have great blessings. A grateful mind is like the root that nourishes the tree of goodness. If the root is good, the tree will be green. If the mind is bright, life will be peaceful and joyful. The foundation of peace and joy does not lie in having many things go your way, but in the ability to cherish what is present in life. Sometimes a word of thanks is enough to mend a relationship. A feeling of gratitude is enough to save a lost soul. Sometimes a little appreciation is enough to keep valuable things around us. Gratitude is like a warm fire that lights our way in dark times. The Buddha taught very clearly that no suffering lasts forever if we know how to cultivate it from the mind. And gratitude is the first step of cultivation. When we are grateful, we do not complain. When we do not complain, our minds are light. When our minds are light, wisdom shines. When wisdom shines, the path ahead is no longer obscure. Therefore, the Buddha taught that gratitude is one of the greatest virtues for a practitioner. A grateful person is never poor because their mind is always full of abundance. From Nam's story, we can draw a profound lesson. Happiness does not come from how much we possess, but from what we know how to cherish. Suffering is not always an enemy. Often, suffering appears to remind us to return to ourselves and re-examine what we once forgot. A grateful person has a resilient heart, so no matter how strong the storms, they cannot be defeated. They always find light in the darkness and find meaning in all of life's events. The healing message for you in this section is to practice gratitude every day, even if life still holds many worries. Every night before you sleep, close your eyes for a few minutes and ask yourself, what am I grateful for today? It doesn't need to be anything grand, just very small moments. You are still breathing, which means you still have opportunities. You still have your legs, which means you can still walk. You still have loved ones to care for, which means you still have a place to return to. Even if life sometimes scrapes you, still be grateful because it helps you grow. Even if someone makes you sad, still be grateful because they teach you lessons about patience and compassion. When you are more grateful, you will find yourself more peaceful. Life always has two sides, like a coin. But a grateful person will always choose to look at the bright side. And when you look at the bright side, your mind naturally brightens too. Remember that even unpleasant things are a part of the journey, and a grateful person will never suffer for long. As you observe the flow of life, you will see bright patches and dark patches intertwined like waves on the ocean. Some people encounter good fortune wherever they go, receiving help from benefactors, being loved and respected. Others feel precarious wherever they go, encountering undesirable situations, feeling their lives trapped in an inescapable cycle. But if you observe closely, you will realize a gentle yet profound truth. Life is not inherently good or bad. It is largely created by one's own way of living, way of thinking, and mindset. Just as water flows according to the terrain, each person's destiny flows in the direction their mind chooses. When the mind is bright, the path of life is bright. When the mind is still dark, steps remain heavy. The impermanence of life teaches us that everything can change, and the first thing to change is always ourselves. In Buddhism, there is a teaching that mind precedes all mental states. This means that everything we see, do, and receive in life originates from the mind. When the mind is peaceful, life is calm. When the mind is chaotic, life is confused. When the mind is good, good things happen. When the mind is not good, unsatisfactory things happen. No miracle can lead us to the shore of happiness if our hearts are still filled with resentment, selfishness, and comparisons. No charm can help us meet kind people if we ourselves have not truly lived kindly. Karma is the red thread that runs through all human actions, and it is strict, but also very fair. As you sow, so shall you reap. Sow seeds of kindness, and you will harvest fragrant flowers. Sow bad seeds, and you will receive bitter fruits. The path of self-correction is not a journey to seek perfection, but a daily journey to adjust one's mindset to lead a more virtuous and peaceful life. Many people often ask why they always meet bad people, why they are always taken advantage of, why life doesn't favor them a little. In reality, most of that suffering stems from within them. When there is much fear in the heart, we easily encounter those who exploit us. When there is much lack in the heart, we easily encounter those who disappoint us. When there is much unhealed hurt in the heart, we easily fall into relationships that repeat the same pain. People often try to change circumstances, but rarely think about changing themselves. They want others to be kind to them, but are not yet willing to be kind to others. They want beautiful karmic connections, but sow seeds of doubt, calculation, and selfishness. When the mind still harbors unwholesome things, life naturally becomes a mirror, reflecting those very things. We live in an era of many opportunities, but also full of pressure. Piled up work makes us easily irritable and impatient. Complex relationships make us tired and lack trust. Failures in life easily make us think that fate is not on our side. In fact, this complexity only becomes heavy when we haven't learned how to look back at ourselves. When we blame heaven and earth, resent people and life, we are only adding layers of dust to our minds. But when we know how to sit back, how to reflect on ourselves, how to ask how we have lived, how we have treated others, what seeds we have sown, then we will clearly see the root of many issues. Buddhist teachings say that everything arises from the mind. Therefore, to change one's destiny, one must change from the mind. The human mind is like a garden. If we neglect it, it will be overgrown with weeds. If we care for it every day, it will be full of fragrant flowers. Many people complain that they are not lucky, but never bother to cultivate their minds. They let the long grass of greed, anger, ignorance, selfishness, hot-headedness, and resentment grow wild. They allow negative habits to invade their entire spiritual life. Then they hope that one day beautiful flowers will naturally bloom. That cannot happen, just like life out there. To have a beautiful garden, you must get to work. To encounter good things, you must sow good things. To be loved, you must give love. To have beautiful karmic connections, you must become a sincere and kind person. Destiny changes when the mind changes is exactly like that. I want to tell you the story of Ms. Han, a woman living in a small rural area. She is 50 years old and has lived half her life in poverty. When her husband died young and her children were small, she had to take care of everything herself. Life weighed heavily on the fragile shoulders of this woman who had nothing but determination. A barren plot of land behind her house gave her an idea. She would ask the local government for permission to use it, hoping to do something to change her life. Not everyone believed she could do anything with that infertile land, but she persevered. Day after day, she herself cleared weeds, tilled the soil, picked out roots, and added handfuls of fertilizer. Many people told her, "You don't know how to farm, so how can you make a living?" But she just smiled and said, "Flowers bloom because they are cared for every day. And human life is the same. No one can do it for you." Time passed, and the first flower beds began to bud. As their colors started to cover the garden, Ms. Han clearly felt the change. It wasn't just the flowers blooming. Her own heart was also blossoming. Every morning, she woke up with the belief that today she had to try harder than yesterday. She took her flowers to the market to sell. At first, it was just a few small bouquets, but then more and more buyers came, because everyone could feel the sincerity and care in each of her flowers. Thanks to her persistence and effort, she gradually gained a stable income. After a few years, she opened a small flower shop. Her flower shop not only sold flowers, but also became a place where many people came to chat and receive positive energy. She often used her surplus money to help those poorer than herself. She said she knew very well what it felt like to have nothing. So when she had the means, she wanted to spread kindness. Ms. Han's story is like a testament to the Buddha's teaching that human life can always change if we are willing to change ourselves. From a poor person, she became someone who sowed flowers and sowed faith in many others. Not because she was luckier, but because she chose to sow good seeds, chose to improve herself every day. She didn't wait for others to help her, but stood up herself. She didn't wait for circumstances to change, but changed her own thoughts and actions. Her life became beautiful because she nurtured it with perseverance, kindness, and the belief that if you do good, good things will come. The flowers in her garden bloomed thanks to her diligent hands and an indomitable heart. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse that says, "Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. Mind is their maker. If one speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves." This verse, though short, contains a great truth. Everything in life has its origin in the mind. When we change our mind, the outcome will change. When we change our way of living, our destiny will change accordingly. This is not a comforting statement, but a natural law of cause and effect. People who live virtuously often meet kind people. Honest people often encounter good karmic connections. Diligent people often achieve better results, not because they are lucky, but because the seeds they sow are abundant. From Ms. Han's story, we learn that life does not automatically get better. It gets better because we improve ourselves. To have a peaceful and joyful life, we must reflect on what we are sowing every day. When we sow sadness, we will meet people who make us sadder. When we sow doubt, we will encounter situations that make us lose faith. But when we sow gratitude, we will meet things worth cherishing. When we sow kindness, we will meet good people. When we sow compassion, we will encounter wholesome karmic connections that help our minds open. Destiny is not a fixed, unchanging thing. It is like a boat on a river. Its direction depends on the hands of the rower. The healing message for you is to start by improving yourself before wishing for life to change. Look at how you are living, how you are treating others, how you are using your words and thoughts. If you want to meet kind people, live kindly. If you want beautiful karmic connections, sow good seeds. If you want life to be light, practice gentleness with yourself and with those around you. Every day, do one virtuous act, however small. Say a kind word, help someone who needs it, share something positive, forgive an old mistake. These things may seem small, but they have the power to change destiny. Life is a long journey, and no one can walk it for you. No one can live for you, nor can anyone sow seeds for you. It all lies in your own hands. If you want flowers to bloom, start cultivating the soil. If you want life to blossom, start cultivating your mind. Don't wait until it's too late to realize that everything can start from yourself. As long as you are persistent and live with a kind heart, life will respond with the good things you deserve. Destiny changes when the mind changes, and the mind changes when you truly want to grow. There are times when we sit amidst the noisy hustle and bustle of life, hearing cars collide, hearing people's hearts compete over various matters, and then we are startled to realize that life is actually more impermanent than we imagined. No matter how strong humans may be, they cannot escape time, carrying everything into oblivion. Happiness comes and goes. Sadness may unexpectedly visit and then quietly depart. Everything passes like flowing water, never flowing backward. The older we get, the more we understand that human life is truly short. But we allow too many days and months to be swept away in a whirlpool of thinking, worrying, and fearing. Some people think about the past so much that they lose the present. Some people worry about the future so much that they have no energy left to live today. Life is a gift, but we have inadvertently turned it into a burden simply because our minds are too busy. The Buddha taught that the mind is the root of all suffering and happiness. When the mind is chaotic, the body is tired. When the mind is filled with thoughts, life becomes heavy. The more the mind chases after illusions, the more worries arise. We often think that we must solve all external problems for our hearts to be at peace. But in reality, according to the Four Noble Truths, the root of suffering lies within our own minds. Suffering does not lie in what happens, but in how we perceive it. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse that says, "Mind is the master of all phenomena. Mind is their chief. Mind is their maker." If we look at things with an unpeaceful mind, a small matter becomes big, and a big matter becomes a burden. But if we keep our minds bright and light, everything has a way out. Therefore, knowing how to face our thoughts is the first step to freedom. Knowing when to stop is the key to peace. People often have a tendency to exaggerate problems inside their heads. A careless word from someone can make us think for weeks. A small issue at work can cause us sleepless nights. A criticism can make us repeat that thought for many days. We think we are analyzing to solve, but in reality, we are just spiraling deeper into anxiety. The more the mind thinks, the easier it is to fear. Fear of others' misunderstanding, fear of not being good enough, fear of an undesirable future, fear of losing what we have. Fear traps us in a vicious cycle with no exit. Sometimes we don't realize that it is precisely these repetitive thoughts that are the cause of our exhaustion. We don't suffer from what happens, but because our minds tire themselves out. When young, we think overthinking is a way to show caution. The older we get, the more we understand that overthinking only makes the heart more confused. When the mind is light, life is light. A person who knows how to live in the present will be less swept away by unnecessary streams of thought. A person who knows how to stop to breathe, to feel life with calm eyes, will realize that life has never been as harsh as our minds imagined. Someone once told a small story that I always remember. The story of a young woman named Mai. Mai was the type of person who thought a lot. A colleague's remark would occupy her mind for weeks. An unfinished task would torment her all night. Sometimes she would sit alone in her small, rented room, look out the window, and burst into tears because she couldn't bear the whirlpool of thoughts in her head. She said she was tired of life, but in reality, she was only tired of herself. Until one day, Mai met a master at a small sharing session at a temple near her home. The master looked at her and gently said, "People suffer not because they lack ability, but because they lack stillness in their minds." The master guided her on a simple breathing meditation practice every evening. Mai began to practice just a few minutes each day. At first, it seemed useless, but after a while, she found her mind less cluttered, her heart lighter, and she slept more soundly. She realized that what helped her find peace was not a change in circumstances, but her mind's willingness to turn inward. The Buddha once taught that no enemy is as fearsome as one's own uncontrolled thoughts. Illusions are like waves. The bigger the waves, the harder it is to see the bottom of the water. The more the mind moves, the harder it is to see oneself. When we learn to slow down our breath, everything returns to order. The mind, like a calm lake, can then reflect the sky. Contentment is the door that opens to peace and joy. A contented person is not someone who has a lot, but someone who cherishes every moment they have. When we are grateful for our breath, grateful for our meals, grateful for our loved ones, grateful for ourselves, our hearts naturally open. It's not that life throws fewer challenges, but that we become less greedy and angry. It's not that life has fewer storms, but that our minds are strong enough to stand in the storms. From these teachings, we learn that peace does not come from the outside. Peace is a gift we create ourselves. When we know how to stop thinking, we are opening a door to stillness for ourselves. When we know contentment, we are filling our lives with peace. When we know how to return to our breath, the mind returns to the body. The body returns to the present moment. And at that time, life appears more clearly. All burdens also lighten. It all begins with a single breath. Now, as the journey of this video almost comes to an end, I want to invite you to take a few minutes to return to yourself. As we gently close a book after a long chapter, yet keep the warmest things in our hearts. Let's sit quietly together for a moment to let our minds rest after long, busy days. You don't need to do anything at all. Just breathe and feel. Let all thoughts settle down for a moment. Breathe in. You know you are alive. A breath is a gift. Each beat of your lungs working is proof that you are still on this journey. Breathe out. You smile at life. Not because everything is perfect, but because you have learned how to face it with a lighter, deeper, and more contented mind. Each breath is a reminder that you still have the opportunity to slow down, to love more, and to let go of worries not worth holding on to. Inhale slowly to feel the air entering your chest. Recognize the life flowing within you. Exhale gently to feel the burden leave your body with your breath. Do this a few times until your mind returns to a calm state, like water after a rain. Everything else can wait. Only this breath cannot be missed. When you return to your breath, you are returning to yourself. When you open your eyes, life may still be the same, but you will be different. You will be a little more peaceful, a little lighter at heart, and just a little bit each day. Like that, life will change. Life is truly short. Don't let it be filled with overthinking. If the mind is at peace, life will naturally be peaceful. If the mind is content, the entire life will be free from worries. Life is meant to be felt, to be loved, to be lived through each day with complete presence, not to be drowned in self-created sorrow. I want to send you a heartfelt message that perhaps all of us need to hear when our hearts are weary. Life is meant to be felt, not to be overthought. I wish that from today, your mind thinks less, your heart worries less, and you truly find peace and joy every day. You know what? The more years I've lived, the more I've realized something that seems simple, yet is very difficult to live by. That is, in life, everything is only temporary. Today's joy will also change. Today's sadness will also become a thing of the past. People get tired because they chase after desires, and they feel heavy because they hold too much in their hearts. When we understand impermanence, every event that happens is just like a passing breeze, briefly appearing and then disappearing. Nothing truly belongs to us forever. That is why, the more we mature, the more we learn to let go of things not worth keeping. Young people often think they must hold on tightly to maintain happiness. Experienced people understand that knowing when to let go is true peace. I once heard a teacher explain that the root of suffering is our clinging to things that are not real. This body is impermanent, emotions are impermanent, and relationships are also impermanent. Yet, we mistakenly think they are eternal. We hold, we embrace, we cling, we torment ourselves. And then we ourselves are hurt by those very things. Many people think letting go is failure. Forgiving is weakness. Abandoning a relationship is defeat. But in reality, letting go is a form of growth. It's when we no longer let life drag us along, but actively choose a lighter path for ourselves. Letting go is putting a stone down from your hand. When your hand is light, your heart can be at peace. In Buddhism, letting go does not mean avoidance. Letting go is clearly seeing the nature of things and then allowing them to return to their rightful place. I remember the teaching about the word suffering in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is not caused by life being difficult, but by our desire for everything to go our way. We want to be loved, but not hurt. We want to be trusted, but not disappointed. We want to be cherished, but not abandoned. The more we desire, the more we hurt. The deeper we cling, the more we suffer. When we understand this, we know that letting go is how we free ourselves from the chains of greed, anger, and ignorance. Letting go is opening the door for a cool breeze to enter. It is granting freedom to ourselves. Every time I talk to people, I find that, for the most part, what makes them tired is not external matters, but the things they impose on themselves internally. Some people are tormented for years by an insulting word. Some people broke up long ago, but still cannot move on. Some people lose a small amount of money, but harbor resentment for a lifetime. The more they think, the more they hurt. The more they cling, the more tired they become. The nature of the human mind is to always want control. We fear loss, so we hold on. We fear disadvantage, so we embrace. We fear others thinking we are weak, so we strain. But the more we strain, the heavier the burden. The harder we try to hold on, the more our hands hurt. Sometimes, just one moment of letting go can make years of exhaustion disappear. Try to imagine, in a single day, how many things burden your mind. Work not going as planned, misunderstandings with loved ones, betrayal by friends, pressure of making a living, and trivial things like traffic jams, noise, criticisms. The mind is like a cup that overflows when it holds too much. When it contains only heavy things, the cup becomes a burden. Letting go is how we pour some out so we have room for peace. If we don't clear our own minds, no one else can do it for us. No one can drink our sorrow for us. No one can untangle us from painful memories. Only we can put it down. Only we know how tired we are. I want to tell you the story of Hung, a man in his mid-30s. Hung owned a small grocery store in a rural market. He worked diligently, living honestly and kindly. His best friend was Tuan. Their families lived close by since childhood. They grew up playing together, so their friendship was very strong. One day, Tuan asked Hung to borrow a rather large sum of money for his business. Trusting his friend, Hung didn't hesitate. He gathered all his savings from years of hard work and gave it to Tuan. But then Tuan left, without a word, unreachable, and never returned. The shock almost broke Hung. He suffered from the financial loss and the betrayal of friendship. He resented, he raged, he swore he would never forgive. From a cheerful person, Hung became completely different, not wanting to talk to anyone, sleeping poorly, eating little. His health deteriorated, and his grocery store was always as gloomy as his own mind. For 3 years, Hung lived in hatred. Every time someone mentioned Tuan, he would flare up. Every time he looked at the debt ledger, he sighed. He placed an invisible but incredibly heavy stone on his shoulder. One day, Hung was crossing the small river near the market to deliver goods. On the bridge, a child, about 8 years old, was playing with stones. The child picked up a fairly large stone, tried to hold it in their hand. After a while, their hand grew tired, and they immediately dropped it into the water. The stone splashed down and sank. The child smiled brightly, as if relieved of a burden, and said to the person standing nearby, "Holding a stone is so tiring. Letting it go makes you light." Hearing those words, Hung felt as if someone had struck his heart. He stood still for a long time. The wind blowing across his face brought a strange feeling. He suddenly realized that he had also been holding a stone for 3 years. A stone of hatred, disappointment, and the pain of betrayal. That evening, Hung returned home. He opened a drawer, took out the stack of debt papers, the lawsuits he hadn't filed, the papers he had written to record all his grievances. All were evidence of the anger he refused to let go of. He lit an incense stick and burned everything. The flickering flames illuminated his face, no longer showing indignation, only weariness and a hint of lightness he hadn't felt in a long time. When the papers turned to ash, Hung felt his heart lighten as well. That moment was like the day he came back to life after 3 years submerged in darkness. After that, Hung no longer mentioned Tuan. He didn't seek compensation, didn't stubbornly demand back what was lost. He returned to caring for his health, looking after his family, and opening his heart to life. His grocery store was bright again as before. People saw Hung smiling more, sleeping better, looking healthier. Someone asked, "Did you really forgive him and forget the past?" Hung just smiled and said, "I didn't forgive anyone. I only forgave myself. I put the stone down so my hand could be light." Hung's story reminds me of a Zen koan. Put down a stone and your hand will be light. So why do you keep holding it? The saying sounds simple, but it opens up a profound perspective on life. Sometimes we blame others for hurting us, but in reality, the person who hurts us the longest is ourselves. When we keep clinging to a wound and refuse to let go, the more the wound scratches, the more it hurts. The more we poke at it, the harder it is to heal. Sadness is the same. The tighter we hold it, the more we suffer. I like a teaching in the Dhammapada. It says that anger is like grasping a hot coal to throw at someone else. But the person burned first is yourself. Holding grudges is burning yourself with the fire of anger. Holding resentment is tying yourself with the rope of suffering. This body is impermanent, and the mind is even more so. One thought arises and then ceases. One deep thought comes and goes. If we know how to let everything pass like flowing water, not holding on, not forcing, then the heart will naturally be as quiet as a calm lake. When the mind is calm, wisdom shines. When wisdom shines, we see clearly that nothing is worth carrying in our hearts for a lifetime. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go is looking back at the situation with clarity and understanding in our hearts that everyone has their own karma. They wronged us because they were pulled by their karma. Our suffering from that event is also due to our karma. Cause and effect in life are not mistaken. Everyone has their own path to walk. If we keep clinging to the past, it's like locking the door of our own heart. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is conquering oneself. Letting go is putting down a burden so the road ahead in life is lighter. When I share this with some people, they say it's easy to talk about, but incredibly difficult to let go. That's true. Letting go is not something that happens overnight. But if we don't train our minds to let go of small things, then when we face big things, we will be very tired. try to look at everything through the eyes of someone who understands impermanence. Whatever comes will go. Whoever stays, the connection remains. Whoever leaves us, the connection has ended. Everything that happens has its reason. When we no longer resist the flow, the mind naturally lightens. You ask how to let go? I think the first step is to recognize what you are holding on to. If we haven't even seen the stone in our hand, we cannot put it down. Sit with yourself for a moment. Breathe deeply. Look straight into your heart. Who are you angry at? What are you sad about? What are you regretting? What memory are you holding on to? The more honest you are, the easier it will be to free yourself. The second step is to accept that what happened has already happened. Acceptance is the foundation of letting go. The third step is to open your heart to forgive. Not to forgive them, but to forgive yourself. And the final step is to live on. Live with the peaceful mind you have just regained. When we know how to let go, we will realize that life is much easier to breathe. When the mind thinks less, the heart worries less. When the heart knows contentment, sorrow does not arise. Letting others have the opportunity to leave is also giving yourself the opportunity to live better. You were not born to carry things that hurt you forever. You were born to be light, to be happy, to walk freely through life. I hope you don't wait until you reach the absolute bottom of pain to let go. Don't wait until your heart is utterly exhausted to release. Remember Hung's story. Remember the stone the child dropped into the river. Light or heavy, it lies in our choice. When your hand is tired, don't strain anymore. When your heart is too sad, don't cling more. When tomorrow is still very long, don't let today become a shadow weighing down your life. If one day you feel too tired, stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself, "From today, I will learn to let go. I choose peace. I choose lightness. I choose serenity. You deserve that."